Please rise for a pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Steffen, will you take attendance, please?
I'm working on it.
Here you go.
Thank you. President D'Alessandro.
Here.
Vice President Brazington.
Here.
Secretary Stepek here. Treasurer Swag.
Here.
Trustee Donnelly.
Here.
Trustee Guthrie.
Here.
Trustee Schaefer.
Here.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Item 2, changes to the board agenda. Mr. Throne.
Actually, I think Mr. Donnelly would like to table.
I do have one,
Okay.
if I may. I think under number 5, Board of Education Matters, Board Community Subcommittee.
Okay.
I'm looking for some data, some more data to come from the office. And so I'd like to table that till next meeting.
Okay.
So I would move to do that.
Yes, yes. I'll second it.
We could put in a formal move to.
That's right, yeah. I move that we move item 5A to next board meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Second, Mr. Schwag. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Tom. Don't cross it off at all. Okay, item 3, consent agenda. We have 2 items.
Did you vote on that?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Is this not? There we go. Okay. Yes, motion carried. Okay, consent agenda. Item number 3, we have minutes of May 9th and administrative hire Stephen P. Wolf. And bills payable, item C. Okay. Motion? Yes, Mr. Stuckey.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Support, Mr. Donnelly. Any discussion? Mr. Schweik.
Discussion, I'd like to amend the minutes for number 8, human resources from our last meeting.
Okay, if we're going to amend, let me see. What we need to do is have a separate before we think of the proper procedure. I'm not thinking about it. I just want to make sure we do it the right way. So I think what we need to do is Mike needs to make a motion to amend the minutes, I believe. Yes. So we're going to table the previous motion, but the consent agenda. Mr. Schweik.
I move to amend the minutes number 8, human resources, part A, previous work compensation from our last meeting.
Second.
Second. How are you amending
Just as Mike,
I guess I'm making a motion, and then I'm going to say what that is,
Okay.
what I'm amending.
okay. Seconded by Dr. Brazington. Discussion?
Well, this is where you say what you wanted to change.
Yep. So, Mr. Schweik?
Yeah, I just, I asked at our last meeting that my remarks be reflected in the minutes. And I shared the questions that I asked with Pat, and several of those remarks were in the minutes, but I noticed a few of them were missing. And seeing that I had requested that they be included, I then sent out a thing to update the minutes, but they had already been set, so I would have to amend them tonight. These are comments or remarks that I made at the meeting, and I asked them to be included as parts of the minutes as I stated them. In our policies, school board policy, we have a section, and under the open meeting 10168.1 that addresses board policy regarding minutes and the fact that they are taken and completed. And the last paragraph states the minutes shall show only action taken, and if requested, comma, remarks of board members, comma, administration, comma, and or citizens present. I guess I'm asking, for me, just interpreting those two, and why I put the commas in there, because I think it's important as far as syntax maybe, but what I'm looking for is, I believe, as a board member, it says remarks of board members, if requested, remarks of board members, the minutes shall show. Minutes shall show. And I requested those. Several of my remarks were included, but some weren't. So I guess we're on new ground here, so let's figure out how we're going to do this for people in the future. And I would say, in relation to if a number was incorrect, how do we amend that if we ask to amend the minutes, whatever it would be. So I guess I just asked to start with, if I had, let's go around and what does that paragraph mean to you, I guess?
I understand the question. The problem that I have is those comments came from a closed session.
Wait a
We
minute.
discussed.
No, they didn't.
Okay, as I recall.
I'll respond to that.
No, not the comments that you made. The comments where you gathered the information was made in a closed session. And I just want to make sure that we're doing.
Not true. I'm not saying they weren't said in a closed session.
Mike, please let me finish.
All right.
I let you speak.
Yes,
You
sir.
let me speak.
Yes, sir.
If those comments were made in a closed session, then they remain in a closed session. Now, I could be wrong. I don't recall having that conversation at any point outside because it revolved around an employee matter. Other people may have a different recollection of that, but that's how I see it. So that's my point into the discussion. Any further discussion, thoughts, or we'll go back to Mr. Schweck?
I could respond to that.
Sure.
I lived that era of what happened during that tenure of time from 2010. I know things firsthand. I know things firsthand. I'm not saying I didn't hear them also, some of these things in a closed session. If those were classified information, I specifically asked questions of our human resources director because I asked the question. I didn't state this as a fact. I asked the question because I knew of these things, firsthand knowledge, because I worked here during that time. And I was aware of some of the things regarding this contract. And I would just offer, is there anything that we could talk about when we came out and said that there was a presentation to approve on the minutes that a payment of $52,000? Were we all supposed to say under discussion? Can't say anything. All I'm saying is, and then I did it, I asked it in the form of a question so that if there was classified information that we weren't supposed to share, the person answering it said, cannot comment. That's why I asked questions. I made no statements.
Anybody else? Ms. Guthrie?
Mr. Schweik, since there's a question about the content of any part of what you shared in last meeting, would you consider tabling this until we're able to determine via an objective analysis based on what brings us together and what we have in common, so policy and the parliamentary procedure, would you consider waiting to join together and assess what was shared to be certain that nothing that was discussed in closed session was revealed?
Could.
And that we haven't violated
Right.
any policy or any parliamentary procedure? Would that be something you would?
I do, and I would suggest though for tonight, I would like to ask, if there was something that I said inappropriately, this is 2 weeks later, I'm finding out about it. And I'm just saying, I'm not saying this, I'm just saying, 2 weeks later, I'm finding out about it, and it's because I asked some questions about putting my statements in there. Now, all I'm saying is this, I'm saying that could be a coincidence. But there's other information in these minutes that are purely right out of the closed session. So if I made some inappropriate comment, some of these other things in here are straight out of the closed session. Straight out. Verbal contracts and things like that. Those terms are straight out. So I agree that maybe this is a good thing that we look at how we do this, because we have to be able to discuss this information in open session. But if I know knowledge from two different sources, and it's the same knowledge, I think as a board member, I'm allowed to use that and ask a question. I did not make a statement saying I knew it for a fact. I asked the questions so that it would not be a statement of I knew it for a fact. But I did know these things that I asked about because I was involved in the school at the time. And I was involved in our OAA association when these questions came up in issues. So that's what I was asking them from.
I don't think that your knowledge of the situation or your contribution is being questioned. I think we just need to be sure altogether that there isn't anything shared because there was a request for the closed session.
Yeah.
And then we owe that.
And I think we're talking about maybe two different issues, and we can either do both at different times. Because there's two comments in here that I made that seem to make the minutes. Two statements, two remarks that I made in these minutes, but not others. I'm saying it seems like it's either yes or no. You can't be partially have information and go, okay, 2 are okay, but the other 5 you're asking for, now we got to talk about it. And that's what I'm saying. I get what you're saying, and I'm all for that, because this is more about, for me to do this, is more about how do we go forward as these situations come up, because it is, well, a gray area. But all I'm saying, I do think I have some points to make. 2 of my remarks were in there. 5 of them weren't. So it either is or it isn't appropriate. But I still say we don't have to solve that tonight.
Any further discussion? Mr. Donnelly?
My only add-on is, thank you very much, by the way. I think that's the right avenue. I started to shudder last time we met because of what was being said in our open session, because we were revealing content of a closed session. And so yes, you have every right to question. I wonder if, as I look in hindsight, whether certain conversations shouldn't have just been stopped and not allowed to continue. Because it is pretty clear that our policy states that you will not reveal the content of a closed session in any way, shape, or form. And we've got to step back and we've got to say, well, wait a minute, because we may have not done some things the right way, and we've got to correct it. So, Jenny, I agree with you 100%.
Mr. Schweik?
Tom, would you agree with me that if 2 of those are in there, that we've got to figure out that 5 could be, or none could be, or how we determine that?
Mr. Chairman? You want me to answer?
Mr. Donnelly?
Mike, exactly. I mean, if I could roll back, I'm wondering if, sorry, Dan, the chairman shouldn't have said stop. I'm realizing that we may be, in the questions and answers, we may be hitting a policy that we're not thinking about right now. And again, I'm only thinking about in hindsight. I mean, as a new guy, I'm just starting to read some of the policies and read over them and going, whoa. So I think properly what would have happened last meeting is somebody would hit a button and stop, and we would have had to word everything different.
And I understand that, and I certainly want to be within the confines of the law. I also don't want, just and to make this a broader spectrum, any of our board members, and when they're discussing an item in open session, to feel that that could be censored and saying, you can't talk about that. And I guess, you know, we just need to determine that in what we can and can't talk about in open session. And again, I revert back to, if I know of information from 3 different sources, and one of them is closed session, and it's the same information, am I not allowed to bring that forward? And I'm just not saying me, but any board member allowed to bring that forward in an open discussion on something that did occur at one time in closed session. I think those are issues that we got to talk about as we go forward.
I agree, and I think what we need to do is we need to, as Ms. Guthrie suggested, we discuss how we're going to move forward with that. One of the things, and I will, as Mr. Donnelly said, I probably should have put the brakes on it last week, but it came during board comments, and I'm pretty much, people have board comments, board members are entitled to have their opinion. So I didn't, and I probably should have put the brakes on things. And kind of hindsight looking at it, you know, it's one of those things where, as I looked at it through the whole week, I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing, as opposed to just voting it to vote it, you know, so. All right. So now I need to look at how this looks. Are we going to table that, or are we going to vote on it?
My suggestion would be any board member can request any item be removed out of the consent agenda. And so if it so pleases the board, someone can just request that the minutes of May 9th be removed so that it's not approved, and then go ahead and proceed with the rest of your consent agenda.
Okay. Mr. Schwag.
Yeah, and as I'm looking at this, it does say any item can be removed consent agenda and discussed as a non-action item or deferred for further study and discussion at a subsequent board meeting if the superintendent or any board member thinks the item requires further discussion. And I believe it requires further discussion.
Okay.
So I would make that motion that we remove that section of the minutes from the consent agenda, and that we discussed it at a...
Are we going to remove the entire board minutes?
Okay.
Okay.
I think you need to.
Let's go ahead. You want to make that motion?
The open
He just needs to request.
Okay.
I just
So it's
request
a
that
request.
we remove the minutes from the
Open session.
Open
open
session.
session, May 9th, for further discussion.
Okay. No, we don't. It's just a request. We don't need to vote. All right.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
So I'll go back to the consent motion.
So now we have the consent motion. And who made that originally?
Yes.
Okay. You want to go ahead and do that again so we have it?
Certainly.
You want me to add the change?
Yes.
The change of,
Move to
Not as presented, but as presented without the minutes. I move to approve the consent agenda as amended by withdrawing the minutes of the open session of the May 9th meeting.
support. Support, Ms. Guthrie. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, before we move on, I want to introduce Mr. Wolf. Can you come up here real quick? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think it's important
But we do.
that we are putting you on the spot.
Get up there.
You stand right by Mr. Barna there,
Be seen on
just
OCTV.
so that folks can see who you are. This is Steve Wolf. He's our new principal at Oxford High School. And we welcome you to Oxford. If there's anything that we can do for you between now and first day of school, feel free. But welcome to Oxford, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Item 4, prearranged request to address the board. Item A, Oxford Virtual Academy.
We have a new curriculum tonight to present for Oxford Virtual Academy. I'm really happy about our new curriculum. It is Calvert education. We've had throughout probably the last 5 years, we were pursued pretty relentlessly by Calvert. It's a very well-known international military families use it curriculum. It's designed for international students who parents really need some structure. It's got a lot of materials, less online than online for the K students. So just some of you that aren't real familiar with OVA, we do serve K-12. We have the virtual full-time diploma seeking, seated students, non-public, homeschool, and share time. So we do have so many different types of families and students that come to us, and the big thing about OVA is that we're always looking for flexible learning options and options that meet different learning styles, and what we found is that one size doesn't fit all. And we recently had an audit, and that was the question they asked me, which providers do you have? And I was like, oh my gosh, and I had the number on, there's so many, and her eyes popped out. She's like, wow, that's a lot. And the reason that we do it, we had that long discussion, is because there's so many different learning styles, so many different types of parents, and what their needs are, and their family situation, and full-time and part-time. So Calvert finally was aligned to Michigan. They weren't for a long time, and now that they are, we looked at it. It's a quality, high-quality program, and we're super excited to be able to present it to the board for approval. It's more, like I said, it's more of a traditional paper pencil feel for younger students, more of a classical approach, heavy on grammar, things like that. It's considered pretty rigorous, engaging, but very structured with family manuals and things for the families to follow. Mom at home can work with our mentors and have a real structured environment to follow to manage the standards. So it's about, like I said, it's more than 100 years old. They're providing academic excellence and support to hundreds of thousands of kids across 90 countries. Some of their most famous are Sandra Day O'Connor, Barack Obama, and William F. Buckley have gone through Calvert at one point or another. Like I said, international and military families use it, and it serves, it's a strong homeschool curriculum, a secular homeschool curriculum, but now that it's aligned and gone digital, it's become an excellent fit for some of our families. So I'm going to go ahead, Tracy, and let you talk about the K-5. Tracy's our elementary mentor and content teacher, and she can share with you a little bit about that.
Hi. One of the things that we all really like about Calvert is that, as Janet said, one size doesn't fit all. And we have a very large population that doesn't necessarily want to function completely all online. As we all know, every student learns differently, and some students don't always function well in an all online arena. And a lot of times we have to kind of change that up a little bit. With Calvert, we won't have to do that. If a student needs a hard copy book versus an online book, they have that. But Calvert also offers a lot of virtual options that are organized in such a fashion that it matches the offline environment. All of the supplemental materials, whether it be interactive games, videos, instructional videos, sing-songs, things like that for the younger children, are all in a bank versus mixed within the lessons. And that's really easy for a lot of parents. This would actually appeal to me as a parent because I'm more of an offline, hands-on person. And so I'm really happy. Just to show you a little bit, I'm not quite sure how to show you, but this is, I was telling Janet, I almost feel embarrassed to show all of you this because it is, oh, sorry.
It's like Christmas, the kids come with a box.
This is just one little, pretty much 1/20th of what the students get. This is one example of one science experiment. Typically, students have about 10 to a dozen experiments that they'll do in a semester. So this is embarrassing, but literally they get a big giant tub to where it's almost like their birthday or Christmas. And they open up these packages and, they have to keep it organized. That's probably the only bummer because they get excited. So this is one example. I'm not sure if you want to pass that around. And then this is another great feature because most of our curriculum is all online. The students, this is just one of about 4. They get these quartered for each quarter. And they can mark these books up. As you can see, there are some marks in here. And it's going to help parents stay really organized because I'm an 80s girl and I would really appreciate this. And most of my parents are 80s people, so that will really work well. And then we have offline books that are provided for all students versus having to request them for our current curriculum. Sometimes we need that.
So just full of all kinds of books and resources for the family, so.
Yeah, this is just a
brought that if you're interested at all, questions. So for the secondary, the 6-8 curriculum, it's got accredited curriculum that inspires and motivates students. The comments that we're hearing from 2 pilot students is it's fun and engaging. And they have all these things that they can do offline. The parents, like I said, are really speaking to the fact that they're able to manage that ability to manage a middle schooler with an elementary and a high schooler. So because it's got the mix of online and offline. They focus on the 4 core areas, aligned to Michigan. We feel really confident this will be a great product for OVA, international, high school. The 9-12 curriculum, it's really a strong prep for college and career and life. It's rigorous high school, very well known in China and other a lot of countries where there's international students because it is so well done and comes so complete with the manual. So we're really pleased about the high school, lots of electives. Pretty much the core is ready to go, aligned to Michigan. We're waiting on economics to come. We're seeking approval for that as well as a package for the 9th through 12th grade. Has EP courses, world languages, electives. So it's vetted. We're really comfortable and confident with this product. So if you have any questions, great.
Any questions for Janet or Tracy? Ms. Guthrie?
Mr. President, you mentioned that they weren't initially aligned with Michigan's, is it laws? It was
The standards.
The standards,
Yeah,
okay.
the state standards.
Is there anything we can do to support you and Tracy in evaluating any deviation from standards as they go forward, if they go, or how that's working for this school?
So what happened was the Open Schools Consortium was using it, and they had put together a supplemental package to bring it to alignment. And throughout this past 2 years, they had a team of people working with Michigan educators to align it. So it has been fully done as of July 1st.
Are they
Fully ready to
very
go.
comfortable with this?
Very comfortable with it. Yeah, Open Schools was using it. So they took that research, I have a manual this thick of all the added. And it isn't so much there was a whole lot missing, they just had to bring in some Michigan history, and just some of those, tweak it a little bit, and some of it was almost too much, it was more like a national.
Well, ELA and math are the national standards.
Yes.
It has made a lot more resources available and universal, so there's been a huge benefit to that there's not a lot of updates that needs to be done in the 2 big ones, ELA and math. We did include, Mrs. Bono did logins for you. So if you wanted to take a look, it just gives you quite a quick snapshot. But the OVA has done as well as looked at the curriculum and made sure as well that it aligns. Because that is important, and we will be taking, at the next board meeting, asking for approval that this be used as an online curriculum.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome resources. It comes a lot of hands-on, involves the parents done. They're just totally excited, and I think it's a great option.
Yeah, I think we're going to see, I think, more families join over because of this product. Families have been asking for it, so.
Very good. Any further questions? Mr. Schweik?
Not a question, but a comment. I appreciate the time and energy you put into researching and the virtual academy the school doing this, and always continuing to grow and expand and draw in more people and meet more needs, really. And really appreciate the time and energy you put into that.
That's why we do what we do, right? Is to service our families from throughout Southeast Michigan, so.
Very good. All right, thank you, Janet.
Wait, I'm jumping the gun.
It's okay, Mr. Anxious there.
A lot going on.
Okay. Item 5, Board of Education matters. We don't have anything under there. Mr. Weaver, curriculum and instruction.
Okay, I'm gonna quickly do an FYI. I'm gonna have Mrs. Gibson Marshall come down with her visitors from Mexico. She will then go ahead and introduce them. I'm not going to try to say the names. I was already instructed. I tried a couple of times. Wasn't a go. So I'll let Mrs. Gibson Marshall go ahead.
So with us today are Senior Portillo, Pascual Portillo. He's the director or the principal of Juana de Esbaje in Tlalnepantla, Mexico. And this is Rosie Macias, who is the English teacher in the same school, Juana de Esbaje. They brought with them 17 students from Mexico in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grades. They are, we have students attending at the middle school. We have students attending at Lakeville and students attending at Leonard Elementary. And they will be here until next Tuesday. Rosie wanted to, or Senior Portillo wanted to say a few words.
Okay, for us it's big opportunity to be here. Thank you for all that effort you've done with us. It's important to practice our second language, and it's important that your kids practice Spanish too. Thank you for all your help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Mr. Schweik?
Not a question again, but a comment. Thank you for visiting our country and bringing us together as a culture with your experience and our experience here in Oxford, and I really appreciate it. And I know we exchange down with you folks too, so it's a great plan in terms of partnerships.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gibson Marshall.
All right, we're going to go ahead and then get started with the presentations. We are going to start off with math. So 7 through 12, math, algebra, geometry, algebra 2, FST, and pre-calc. I'll go ahead and bring up your presentation.
We brought our own slide.
Good job.
Oh, you got it.
Hi there, I'm not, is this on?
No, you're good.
Okay, I'm not feeling very good, so I'm not going to shake your hands. You're welcome. My name is Jackie Rank. I teach Algebra 2 and the 2-year Algebra 2 at Oxford High School.
I'm Joe Mobley. I teach geometry and pre-calculus.
And then we also have a couple of other math department coworkers that helped us with this presentation in front of OCC and our own staff meeting. And Dan Miller over here is going to be flipping the slides for us. He teaches Algebra 1. Are you doing Algebra?
Next year, Algebra 1, Algebra 2.
Geometry and Algebra 2 right now. And then Becky Morgan is Algebra 1 and FST.
Moral support.
All right, so, yep, go ahead to the next one. Look, your graphic worked this time. We're all putting on paper. She was so excited about that, and then in front of the Oxford Curriculum Council, it did not actually do that, and she was pretty bummed about that. So our last curriculum rewrite was actually back in 2007. I was hired in January of 2007 under Virginia when she was here, and shortly thereafter, Dr. Skilling came in. And so we also did a textbook research and adopted a new book in 2008. So we were very due for a curriculum rewrite and for a textbook selection that would be up to date with the Common Core state standards that were put into practice in 2010 and the updated standards for mathematical practices. We also had pre-calc and FST for, it's almost like an applied geometry and a regular geometry is what it was set up as, and we really wanted to try to separate those courses. So over the summer, we met with Sue Clippert over about, I think it was 4 days, taking a look at the standards, what was covered in Algebra 1, what was covered in Algebra 2, what was covered in pre-calc and FST, and making sure that because Algebra 2 is what is required for graduation, that we had everything that was a Common Core state standard covered prior to the conclusion of Algebra 2. And we realized that we had a couple of concepts that were being covered pretty thoroughly in Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, and then we had some standards that were not being covered in Algebra 2. So we did a little bit of shuffling. We moved some concepts just to Algebra 1, so they were now being covered more in depth in the Algebra 1 course. We added some concepts to Algebra 2, and we moved some of what are called starred state standards, which are not required to be covered before graduation. We pushed those to FST and pre-calc. Other than that, geometry, we really just tidied it up and then made sure it was up to date in Atlas. All of the courses, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, geometry, FST, and pre-calc are up to date in Atlas now. We wanted to make a separation or distinction between pre-calc and FST so that those were a little bit more of different courses as opposed to an applied version. Would you agree with that? Okay. Thanks. Good, Becky? We just wanted to mention that no other departments are being affected by this changing curriculum, and we are not going to require any further staffing in the department. When we met in front of OCC, we talked about all 5 courses, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, FST, and Pre-Calc. For the sake of time, we're going to condense that a little bit. One thing I do, if you want to go to the next one, in this slideshow, click it a couple more times, that's good. One thing that we're really proud of is our implementation of the IB, MIP program and the different projects that we're using. And Joe's going to go a little bit more into depth in that later, but I just wanted to let you know that this is an Algebra 1 project where they take a look at a comparison between a community college tuition versus a Michigan State tuition and how it has changed over the years. And then they use that data to write an equation for the trend to predict what it'll be when they graduate and go to college. So a lot of really applicable, because especially in math, you always hear, when am I ever going to use this? And so we really try to give the students an idea of when they will be able to use some of this math. That's a lot more difficult in Algebra 2 and Pre-Calc, just because those courses are such a broad spectrum. Usually when students ask me that in Algebra 2, I tell them that when they go to college, that's when they get to really branch off and pursue their line of work. We need to teach you everything that you could possibly need to know to be successful, because you may be a professional basketball player, we'll see. You may be an engineer, you may be a hairstylist. None of these things are bad things, but they're all different. And so trying to teach you specifically what you're going to need to know is impossible when I need to take care of all the students. We're going to go to geometry. Joe's going to talk a little bit about this geometry unit.
Sure. If you look at the slide up there, how IB unit planning has changed our curriculum over the last few years is, if you look, there's a statement of inquiry, and what that does is it kind of drives the whole unit for students. This particular unit on triangles, before we implemented the IB program, we might have taught Pythagorean theorem, then we go to special right triangles, and everything was taught as a different section in the textbook. And it's just that students just moving through the textbook, traditional, style, where we take that statement of inquiry and tie everything together. So now we're talking about triangular space. And throughout the whole unit, students are questioning and they're constructing, making different constructions of the triangle and finding out there's different revelations about triangular space in general. So, so at the end of this unit, we, as a math department, had to come up with, what's a culminating project that can tie this whole unit together. And so what we did, if you look up there, it's a cell phone tower project. We have Brandon Township, the village of Clarkston, and Lake Lorraine on a map. And we talk, those are cell phone towers. Or I'm sorry, those are those are cities, basically, right? Those are where people live. So what we're trying to do is we give them the situation where they're working for a cell phone company, and they got to put the location of a cell phone tower where it serves best for those 3 cities. Based on what we've done in that unit of study, they find the Circum Center, and they find that point is equal distance from all those cities. But at the end, we have them actually write I think we have them write AT&T, and we say, we want you to hire us basically to put that cell phone out there. Here's the reason why, and they have to justify the reasoning. They make a claim, they have to provide evidence and reasoning. And that, I think, for a high school student, they're starting to see that across the curriculum. And they're starting to see in English classes and math classes. So it's taken this whole traditional approach to rows and desks, where you're just getting a percentage grade on a test, and you get that. It's changing and making them go in depth more. I will say this: at the end of the year in May, you ask a student, "Hey, you remember Chapter 2 multiple choice test?" They have no clue. Do you remember the cell phone tower project? Oh my gosh, yeah! And they can tell you the math, and they go into it. So it's changing how math looks, and I think it's involving a lot more students who would otherwise, maybe not score well on multiple choice tests or something like that, and giving them an opportunity to really express who they are in these projects. Yeah, one other thing before we move on to the Algebra 2, we mentioned before, it's nice, uncomfortable. It's crazy. Okay, yeah, so what we were going to mention was it's caused us to do a lot of cross-curricular talk with other departments. We realized as a math department that a lot of the students, when they were writing that proposal, would make a claim and have no idea how to support it at all. They'd make the claim, and then they'd just say something that was just kind of trite, and we're like, okay, where are you basing this off of? So we had to actually talk to the English department, and they talked about the CER model, which is claim evidence reasoning. And so we're now actually using that in the classroom. So it's involving other departments. It's pretty cool. All right, now you can talk about it.
And then, of course, they're always like, wait, I thought we only had to do some language arts, we had to do math too. And there is, we really try to push literacy, and that there is reading and writing in math, not just numbers and letters. Although my husband did say that he stopped being able to understand once they threw letters in math. Hopefully our children get my math brain nuts. He's the wrestling coach. Okay, so we're going to talk about Algebra 2 next. One of the hardest units to be able to link to some sort of real-world application is the logarithmic unit. Exponential is pretty easy. You use it a lot in biology, and you use it when you're talking about a dinosaur bone and trying to figure out how old it is based on the carbon in it. That's usually half-life and carbon dating. That's an exponential function. Logarithms are a little bit trickier. They're typically used to solve an exponential function. So the statement of inquiry that we use, which links really, really well with our summative IB assessment, is that by recognizing the relationships between a person's well-being and factors in the environment, measurements can be used to conclude and justify how society is affected by unseen factors. And at the conclusion of this unit, the unseen factor is the radon gas. Go ahead and look at this one. So what the students were given was an actual data set, compliments of Becky Morgan's husband, who works in the field, or worked in the field. And so he got us actual strips, which you can see on the lower right, of data from somebody's home. All of the homes were unsafe. They had to first conclude that based on the picocurries per liter level that is considered safe, which would be anything underneath 4. So the Environmental Protection Agency
They get all this information ahead of time in the project, kind of stating what is unsafe, and it walks them through the steps of figuring out whether or not their home is unsafe or if it's okay, which I told them ahead of time, it's not going to be okay. You're not done with the project. Be like, yeah, they're fine. They are going to need to leave their home. So what they then did was, using the average of radon in the home, they wrote an exponential equation and then they graphed it, which is what you see up there on the top right. This was Emily McClear's. Was I allowed to say that? That's probably supposed to key. I just did. Sorry.
Just start that.
Well, it was supposed to be anonymous. But so this student, I thought, did a really great job of graphing what that would look like, because we really try to stress to the students when they're doing these projects, and at the end when they have to address the homeowner, in this case, whether or not they are safe in their home, you really want the homeowner, who may not have any idea what they're looking at, to be able to look at a graph and understand what they're looking at. So this student has hours of mitigation, which is the actual process of removing the radon gas from the home, along the x-axis, and then the radon level on the y-axis. And she even pointed out, where the starting level was, and then you can see from the curve how it decreases over time, and then she shaded in when it was safe. So you can see from the graph. So they had to predict from the graph, and then they had to solve the exponential equation using logarithms to prove that that was the amount of time that the homeowner needed to be out before it was safe to return. And they were expected to then write a letter referencing what radon gas is, why it's dangerous, what the Environmental Protection Agency says about what's safe and what's unsafe, how long they need to be out. So just over, their basic overall recommendation, citing the equation, the graph, and everything that goes along with it. So, one thing that we also had to do, as I stated earlier, back in 2008, we selected a textbook, and that textbook was prior to the Common Core state standards. Plus, there are a lot of really great resources now that are out with a lot of these textbooks. So we did a piloting process with 2 different textbooks, the AGA series and the Big Ideas, and it was pretty unanimous in the math department. We all liked the Big Ideas better than the AGA. Go ahead and go to the next one. Why we chose Big Ideas, once again, linked to the Common Core state standards. That's a huge thing. The online resources for parents, for students, and for staff. There's quite a bit on there, quite a bit about differentiating. So really trying to reach the lower level students that are struggling and giving them some more basic examples to start off and building them up, and then also including some challenging examples to be able to reach those students that are a little bit more gifted, catching on quickly so they don't get bored, really trying to progress them also. Pretty well follows our curriculum calendar, and then the questions that they had, I talked about those, and then the mathematical practices that I mentioned at the beginning of our presentation are also outlined on the back and in the questions in each section. So there will be questions in the section that will say reasoning and problem solving and modeling with mathematics, so that we can hit those 8 standards for mathematical practice in each lesson.
I think it goes without saying that, if you're thinking about this presentation, if you guys, as you went through high school, were you taught this way with these type of projects? No. So I think it's changed our teaching strategies a lot. We've had to, in our PLCs, talk about how we're going to, if we want to give them this project at the end of the unit, what types of things do we have to do along the way so that we're prepared for this? So it's, it's testimony to the radon project that we had. That wasn't in the textbook anymore. We had to come up with that, and we collaborated to come up with these experiences for students. So, a lot of real-world examples are coming into the math program. There's a lot of different technology being used. It's a lot different. And for us, I think we've stayed ahead of the curve as teachers, preparing students for that. So we're continuing to do that. We're going to show you in pre-calc in just a second. Is it pre-calc next?
No, FST, but was.
Yeah, these are the two areas where I think we did a pretty good job with Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 3. We're still working through FST and pre-calc, and we're going to show you a few of our units that we have in both of those.
No.
The FST, we just actually wanted to show this one out there as an example. Our summative assessment there is still a unit test. So there is still some units that are unit tests, so students are getting tests. Not every single unit is a summative, so we just wanted to show that slide to kind of put some reality to it as well. So this pre-calc unit, in pre-calc we have tried in this unit, especially of advanced trigonometry, how are we going to come up with something that engages students? We wanted to bring technology into it. In this unit, we found a lot of students struggle with this concept of domain and range. Basically, your x values and your y values, restricting those. We were covering how to graph cosine curves, sine curves, all different types of curves, so we came up with this project on this Desmos software. If you want to go to the next slide. It's pretty cool. They go on the software, and what they have to do is, this is one student's, what they have to do is they have to, if you look at the bottom, there's a whole bunch of equations. They have to restrict the domain and range of these equations. These equations go on across the screen, the entire screen. So they have to restrict that domain and range to make a picture. You can see it's the Chicago Bulls logo. The eyebrows of the Chicago Bulls, a sine curve, by the way. And what they're learning how to do is, with different variables, transform that graph. So they're learning on, there's about 4 different variables on how to move the graph around. And I got to tell you, we started this project, and there was, everybody had a laptop. It was like a visual pacifier for everybody. Like everybody was engaged, walking around. Well, how am I going to get the questions that came out of this activity for pre-cal students was amazing. So now when we reference domain and range, we just reference the Desmos graphing project. We're like, oh yeah, I understand what you're talking about. Whereas before we, reference a concept, if there's nothing for them to put it to, they're not going to understand it. So we're creating this environment for students, and I think it's pretty powerful. This is the textbook we chose for pre-calc. We like jalapeno peppers, but that is not the reason why we chose this. It basically fits how all the new power standards and the plus standards that we were talking about before, it fits all of those. It's more user-friendly for students. We liked our pre-calc book now, but it was really tough to guide students. If they missed a day in class, this has great examples for students. It's more user-friendly, and it fits with how we aligned our standards. This is the fun slide. This is the estimated cost with the calculators and the charging stations. There's the textbooks, and by the way, the Big Ideas Algebra 1, that also includes the middle school textbooks, I believe, as well. Yep, and same with the geometry. And the pre-calc and FST textbooks are the third bullet point with a nice range over there. So, do you have any questions for us now about the estimated cost?
It's not a cost, it's an investment.
It is an investment.
Yes, Dr. Brady.
I just have a question. Does the book adoption include some kind of professional training by the book publishing companies?
Both of them do, both Big Ideas, and one thing nice about Big Ideas is we use Big Ideas series down at the middle school. So now in the K-5 program is Math Expressions, which is the same authors. So now you have a K-12 math approach that has some consistency all the way through. So we're really excited about that. As well as there is training days, PD that comes with it to help them unpack the books because there's so much in them. And as well, both Big Ideas and the Blitzer book have an awesome online software that comes with it that is just unbelievable. I went to a training of, gosh, I'm losing track of days, I think a week ago, down in Sterling Heights, and I went through a demo of it for an hour. It's called My Math Lab, and it's just really impressive, all the different helps that are available to the kids. Because sometimes we think, okay, pre-calc, these kids don't need help. They need help too, especially as many kids as we have now due to the acceleration of the tracks at the middle school going through pre-calc. We definitely need the support. So we're really excited. This is a long overdue, and I do want to thank the math teachers. They were awesome to work with. They relied on me just a little too much for the math, but that was okay.
All right, further questions? I have a question. Is that enough books?
Yes.
Yes.
I think what happens is we worry about the total cost, which is, I appreciate that. But we want to make sure that we're not looking at cost as opposed to, do we have enough? So we want to make sure that if we're going to spend money, we're going to spend it so that everybody has the appropriate tools.
Yes, it is enough. I ran the numbers. I will double check. I will be bringing the quotes to you at the next board meeting for approval. You'll approve the curriculum next time. If you feel comfortable at that point in doing the books as well, you may, or you can wait 2 weeks after that. It won't affect anything. But the quotes weren't quite ready. I had to call them and come back and say, hey, this needs to be adjusted. So they were ready to go into this board packet, so I just feel comfortable sliding them in. But I will bring them to you at the June meeting, and then you can do either, like you said, approve that, or
Question for Mr. Weaver.
I was just gonna piggyback off that. We are in the process of collecting how many numbers of books that we currently have from McDougal Littell, and trying to sell those to get a little bit of money back for that as well.
Mr. Weaver, how's the, excuse me, how's the IB curriculum changed or affected the entire population at the high school?
Well, I think you saw it in the activities that are here, and I think the math department, you know, its implementation is you know, in the different departments and with different courses at different stages, it is a very complex and difficult task. Those type of projects that you saw at the end don't come naturally. They take quite a bit of time and effort, and to sit down and as a group think about how we're going to approach this and to develop those. It happens over time. And so I think what you've seen with IB is you see really those real-world applications really filtering into the courses more, and especially a course like math where, especially when we started on the IB journey, that was one of the hardest ones I think to really get going with the MYP and to get traction there. Because it was like, how are we supposed to do it? Because they were, you know, a lot still, you know, it's changed a lot of our practices as far as the stand and deliver. And not that they were all like that before either, I don't want to give that misconception. But it really helped push that method of really getting the kids hands-on, giving them real-world problems to solve, something they can relate to. And IB's really helped with reinforcing that as it's required. And you know, there's times when a regular, like Joe said, a multiple choice test is the appropriate assessment for that unit. And there's other times where, you know, you can really show the kids the application of the math and how they could really use it down the road in a career or in a situation later. So it really has developed that aspect. And it's one that I think is constantly evolving. The other part about the curriculum that I would say is probably really helped with MYP is a lot of times we put we had the curriculum, we put it on a shelf. We need to be constantly reflecting on this curriculum and discussing it. And so that itself allows it, that process allows for more development, because one of the things that we've started this year is professional learning communities with the different departments. And Mr. Amabili helps participate in that. And really what it does is we've trained leaders this year, and they've done a few sessions and so forth. But it really helps to have the teachers sit down as professionals, help with each other in the best. I've always said this, and it gets a bit cliche, but the best professional development a teacher will ever get will be from a fellow professional in the same situation. Then talking about experiences, sharing their perspectives, talking about instruction, discussing results from data, and that will do more to develop the skills and the practices of our teachers than they could ever learn from me presenting to them, for example.
And then one real simple, because I think the perception out there is that the IB curriculum is only for those students that are seeking an IB diploma.
No. It is.
So this touches how many?
All kids, all 6 through 10 kids are in the curriculum. And it really has created a situation where the kids have that in all departments, all courses, are getting exposed to those more rigorous projects that colleges, you know, when you go out and get a job, nobody says, hey, you know, I'm paying you such and such an hour and you're going to take a multiple choice test for me. You know, really a lot of those type of approaches, unless you're going to be on Jeopardy, you're not going to really use that format. These type of assessments allow a more authentic, holistic approach to the assessment that really allows you to gauge, especially kids that don't always, you hear about that test anxiety, and that's a real thing for a lot of kids. They don't experience it so much in this because it's, you know, it's broken down, it's engaging, it's fun. There's nowhere near as much pressure. A lot of times they can, like in a work, you know, in a work environment, you're working with somebody. You're not working in isolation. If you have a question, you know, in a test, if you're taking a test, I can't turn to Mr. Schwag and say, hey, you know, help me out with this one. Next thing I know, my test is on. Yes, there you
Yes,
go.
if I could jump on that. I think it has multiple entry points for kids that, you know, the highest level functioning kid in the classroom can approach that project a certain way. As somebody who's struggling, there's multiple entry points for different levels of students. I have found in my classroom anyway that it's been the kids that struggle the most that enjoy the IB projects and the inquiry-based learning more. It's not so much I have to know a procedure and how to plug the numbers in and get the answer. With students who struggle, that's, they're not familiar with the process. We're giving them a situation where they can be creative and they ask questions, they ask great questions. I think the students that struggle ask the best questions. So if that perception is out there, hopefully we can squash that.
I was just going to say that the other thing that we've noticed is since it's started, they've definitely improved at it. They're whining a little bit less because they know that it's coming, that they're going to have to do, a summative assessment in a different, context. But I've definitely seen an improvement in their thinking, their critical thinking, their problem solving since we started these MYP and the primary years program. I think we're just going to continue to see these students growing in that aspect instead of more of a regurgitation type education, which typically students that are just expected to regurgitate the material remember it for the test, and then you ask them a week later and they don't really remember it. And then you also mentioned, really making sure that this is a work in progress. Since we have adopted a new textbook, we will be spending quite a bit of time this summer collaborating, and the math department is great for collaboration. We're all, we work really well together. Our meetings go a lot different than some of the other ones that I've heard about. But that is something that we're going to be constantly evolving the material and making sure that with the new textbook that, we're continuing to improve our skills to, better serve the Oxford students.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to thank them again. I really gained a whole new appreciation for the department. It was fun working with them, and I look forward to continuing with them. It was really awesome. They're a great group. We get it as a strength at the high school.
We dropped them.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So we're going to have Mrs. Petrus present on the 4th year class for Biomed program. They might be all. Mr. Did you get here?
No, I did not.
Gotcha.
Sorry about that. Mrs. Petrus will be presenting the 4th year class for Biomed. This is a really unique class, and we're really proud to have it presented here today. Didn't know if we were going to be able to do it. I'll let Mrs. Petrus share her news at the end. And we will, but we'll go ahead. This is a phenomenal class. And if you've got a child that is thinking of the health service industry, this whole program is just great, and this 4th year class is great. Do you want me to?
That's great, because I have a lot of those.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So my name is Mrs. Peters, and I've seen you guys before when I talked about HOSA. So HOSA is different. HOSA is a club, an after-school club, but many of the students who are in HOSA are also in the Biomed program. But I also like it because it's not a requirement, so if they're not in the Biomed program, they can join HOSA, but if they don't have time for HOSA, then they can do the Biomed program. So, so everybody at Oxford has a chance to get exposed to some type of Biomed. So mine is not going to be as long as the math. I love them, but they presented our whole curriculum, and this is just a class that we changed. So this is the 4th year Biomed in the series. We kind of sort of used the PLTW curriculum, and I say kind of sort of because we changed it a little bit to make it more CTE friendly. So the course I'm going to talk to you today about is the 4th year, which is the capstone course. And just a little bit of information about this course. It's open to only seniors. And in this course, the students apply what they've learned in the 3 previous courses. So it's more of a demonstration of what they have learned in the Biomed program. And also, the thing that we added this year, which was very exciting, is that we use this as an opportunity to expose the kids to the healthcare industry as they are in high school. So I wanted to give you a quick overview. Actually, should I go over? Wait, let me go back. Okay. So I just want to give you a quick overview of the PLTW program, or the Biomed program. So the first year is more of an introduction to biomedical issues like major diseases such as heart disease, sickle cell. And what they do in the first year is we have a fictitious patient named Anna Garcia who is found dead, and we set up a crime scene. And then we look at her throughout the year to see what could be her possible cause of death. So we spend the whole year learning about the issues that she has, and we spend each year revealing a little bit more of the autopsy. So she gets an autopsy indicating that she has diabetes, so we learn all about the endocrine system and diabetes. Then we find out that she also has sickle cell, so we learn about the genetics and we learn about sickle cell. Then we find out she has heart disease, so we learn all about heart disease. Then we find out that she has a urinary tract infection, and then, I know, she's awful, she's in terrible shape. So then we figure out all about infectious diseases and if it goes sepsis. So all year, the first year is really fun to teach, because all year they're like, I know how she died in speech risk, but I can change it every year so they really don't know how she dies. So actually tomorrow I'm going to reveal the cause of death. So I'm not going to tell you because you might tell them. So it's a mystery throughout the whole year, and it's really, really fun. So second year is more of the anatomy and the physiology. And it's a little more content-based in the sense that they are going to learn about what's in the human body. So it is very much like anatomy and physiology. There's a little bit of clinical stuff in that they have to figure out, they have to diagnose, like what we learn about like diagnosing diseases. The third year is more of medical interventions. So they learn if such and such is wrong with the body, then how do we fix it? So fourth year, we're going to take all that information and see and apply that information. So now they are ready for the workforce, we hope. So there are four, this is the fourth year I'm talking about. So there are 4 units, I will call them. And they're designed, it's very, very IB-ish. I guess it's not technically IB, but it's very, very IB-ish in that it's around a big problem. So the first one we call Design an Effective Emergency Room. So they are presented with a problem where an individual goes to the emergency room and she waits and waits and waits, and then she dies because she didn't get her treatment in time. So we figure out, well, what could we do to prevent that situation? So they design an effective emergency room to look at all the ins and outs of an emergency room. And we actually go to an emergency room and they show us the different areas of what we see in an emergency room. And we have a nurse come in and kind of show them around. And then they design their emergency room, but when they present it, they have to present it in front of a panel. Because when it's just me, then they don't work as hard because they just think, oh, it's just Mrs. Peters. So, but they have to present in front of a panel, and the panel are experts. So this year there was an emergency room physician, there was a nurse, an ER nurse, the one that took them around. There was a EMT from the fire department, and then, and actually our officer here, because he's seen a lot of emergency situations. So they had to present in front of those guys, and they really had their A game on because they knew that they were going to ask questions that they needed to know the answers to. So, and going into that, they are much more, they put their A game on at the very beginning. So, so the next unit is on, we call it Exploring Human Physiology, and they design their own experiment from start to scratch, and they can use any of the stuff that we learned from the 3 years, and they can use any of the equipment, and basically it's you design your own experiment. So they have to find a research question, they have to do some background research, they have to find their own subject, so we find a class that will work with us, and they collect the data, they present the data, and again, they have to present it in front of a panel that can ask them questions. And the third unit is combating a public health issue. So they have to write a grant proposal to address a public health concern. Sometimes it's, I think 1 year, one of the really good ones that they did was they did a grant to educate on vaccines, and if parents decided not to vaccinate, then they wanted to at least educate the parents so that they would make an informed decision, but not swaying them either way because parents have a right to choose. And then the fourth one is designing a biomedical innovation, and again, they have to use their creativity. And then we do a Shark Tank, and we have the panel can donate, or not donate, but can invest in their product. So whoever gets the most money gets the highest grade. So that's a fun part. So the other part that I think is probably the most exciting is that the half of the class is job shadowing. So they get to do what I call internships, where for half of the day or for half of the week that I have them, they get to go and job shadow at facilities around Oxford. So these are the locations that have agreed to work with us. Health Desk, Oxford Fire Department, Summit Physical Therapy, Lakeside Veterinary Hospital. So these are all the places around Oxford that have already agreed to work with our students. And they get to see what people do in the healthcare field for real. So how the course is structured, for 2 days a week I see them, and they work on one of those 4 projects that I talked about. And for 2 days of that week, then the students are off-site and go to their internships. So how the course is assessed is that their presentations are assessed, and also for their internships, they have to create a portfolio demonstrating what they learned on the job. They have to make a resume, they have to do a business letter, a thank you letter. So all the skills that we hope that they learn being professionals, we want to start them off, at this stage of game. So, so some additional things that are not so much of an issue, but students have to have their own transportation, so they know that at the get-go. So it's even in the course selection book that they have to have their own transportation to get to their internships. They have had to have completed all 4 of the biomed courses. I think 1 or 2 times one child or student was able to skip, and it's really difficult because they're supposed to build on all of the information that they learned, and then there's one person in their group that didn't learn the same thing, so it's a little more difficult. So we would like them to have completed all 3 of those biomed courses, and they have to have received health clearance because they are working with patients. So, and they have to have their own insurance. And this is something that we tell the people that are planning to work with us, that students have insurance, that and they have to have health clearance before we put them on the site. So, so lessons we learned this year. So the seniors are done, so I can talk about them now. But it was very successful, but we did get some good feedback that we're going to grow and learn from. We did a committee meeting, and a lot of the people that are on my committee were also the people that work with the students, so they gave us some feedback. So some of the things they said is that I have to do a better job, or whoever replaces me, will have to do a better job of communicating things like when the students are off, because they would say, I thought that they were supposed to be here, but actually it was like a legit day off, and they didn't know, and that's something that we should communicate better. Most of the students did really well, and I'm going to talk about them next, but there were maybe 1 or 2 students that didn't exactly appreciate this awesome opportunity. So we thought that, because they're kids, so we thought that if they worked for their internship, instead of just handing it over to them, that maybe they would take it a little more serious. So we would like them to apply and get interviewed before they do the internship. And then we would prep them for the application, and we would prep them for the interview. So we are teaching them those skills also before they are actually on the job site. And also to start a trial period before the actual internship. So that maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and then, because maybe the student decided, well, I don't really want to be a dentist. So if they try it and then they get back and they think, this is something I really like, I want to continue, or maybe not so much. That trial period is a safe way for the kids for us to switch gears. And also for the students to get monthly evaluations. So, and I thought that I just wanted to do the least, I wanted the healthcare facilities to do the least amount of work. So I thought it would be imposing if they have to evaluate them, but they actually said they want to, because then they get a stake in how the kids perform. So that was valuable feedback for me. So, but I did want to end on the successes. We did have a lot of success, but these are the ones that stand out. So Coley Johnson was one of our students, and he did get a scholarship to receive his EMT training because he worked at the fire department. And that was, I think the fire department was the best place to do their internship because they literally got to go on the runs. And they actually got to do like real medicine. Jenna Carson, who was also at the fire department, she graduated early so that she can start her EMT training. And why this is good is because an EMT is a job that they can have in college, so it is a way for them to pay for college. So this is a good way for them to start their careers in the medical field. And then we have a student named Katie Comparoni who started off as a job shadow at Summit Physical Therapy, and they liked her so much that they just hired her. So she now works there. So, so we're very pleased, that these kids were successful. And then there were a couple that maybe weren't ready for that type of exposure, but that's okay because, it's a learning experience. So, all right, so any questions?
Fantastic.
Okay, thank you.
Amazing.
All right, thank you. Oh, okay, my news. So, this will be my final presentation because I'm moving. So actually, I know. So I'm moving back home to Pennsylvania. I know, Daisha. I'm moving back home because my husband got a job, and it's near my family, and my mom wants to see my son grow. And honestly, it was a hard decision because I really, really liked Oxford. And I wasn't like, let's go. I seriously was like, I have to think about this because I love my job and I love Oxford. And it was like my mom's eyes were like, oh, I want to see my grandchildren. So that's really why I made the decision. But I want to take this opportunity to tell you that I loved working here. So I appreciate that.
We like to thank you. And just echo, we are very happy for you and your family. But we will miss you as well.
Thank you.
The next presentation is from the Bridges Service Learning. I don't know, it was about a year ago, I guess, or so. They came to me and said, hey, we got an idea for a class and for a big change in what we're doing the last little bit. And I said, sure, I'll hear it, and I'll let them go from that. It was an awesome opportunity.
So we have not had an opportunity to meet everybody personally, so I'd like to start with introductions. I'm Alita Van Dusen. This is Mallory Malloy, Nick Cost, Nikki Flores, and Whitney Stern. And we are, for the most part, this one person in Bridges. Actually, this got started probably my first year when we began talking about what our students needed for this program. And then hearing everybody talking about students who learn differently, that's who we are. We have the probably bottom most 30 students.
Can I interrupt you for 1 minute? I'm going to take a 2-minute break.
Sure.
Okay? I'm going to take a 2-minute break because I think it's appropriate at this time. Okay. So let's take a 2-minute break. We'll be right back in a couple minutes. Okay. We're all set.
Hit reset. Mr. Van Loosen.
So anyway, as I was saying, we started thinking about this project actually a few years back when we first started at Bridges because the students, well, they're at the middle school right now, which is, but anyway, we do a lot of projects
in the classroom as opposed to traditional style testing. We do a lot of projects with students to assess their capability in curriculum. But we wanted more than that. We wanted more than just cross-curricular projects. We wanted to see students actually gain skills of collaboration, cooperation, and while we're not an IB school, we embrace the philosophy of IB, which is the whole person, not just pieces. So in 2014, Nathan Spencer joined Oxford, and he is an expert in the field of service learning, project-based learning. He did that in Detroit when he was with the schools down there. And so him and I met, and we were both very excited because he's very interested in it, I'm really interested in it, the team's really interested in it. So actually it was probably born at dinner prior to Christmas break when we were all together. And it's amazing what things can happen sometimes during dinner. Mallory and Whitney that summer went to Seattle, Washington to the Educurious to learn for a full week to learn about curriculum and implementing more of a project-based service learning project. We felt as a school we were not really quite ready to do this last year, that we were not steady enough because of all the things that we had been doing. We are standard-based grading, so that means you have to break down standards, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we started this fall, and so our goal is hopefully to give students a better understanding of the world that they live in, whether that be their community, whether that be on a global level, whether that be as small as bridges. Being able to gain global awareness, citizenship, collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving, and that they can affect change in their community. Right? It takes one person to really affect change. Our course description with a focus on 21st century skills, British students will design and implement service learning projects to best serve needs within their community. Now, that can be in several different ways. So they can do it on a direct service, indirect service. So, they can pick how they're going to implement this. Research real-world contacts, use SMART goals and proposals will lead students into a type of service action to best fit their goal. Students will present and reflect on their action and service through a capstone, e-portfolio, and portfolio presentation in front of stakeholders. So basically, they're going to have to defend what they've done during this time period. They're going to be assessed in many different ways, but that's going to be their final. As far as resources and budget, other than maybe having to take a bus somewhere, there's not a whole lot of money involved, but we are going to set aside like $2,000 to $3,000 right out list in case anything comes up. Students will also use the library and computer resources. E-portfolios will be completed through the free website Creator Weekly, and additional resources will be utilized as deemed necessary for students to complete their service actions. Students will also be seeking out stakeholder help in the form of community members, business professionals, and agencies. Food?
Jeez.
Cheese food.
Too much for me, what's everybody else on that?
So the 21st century skills, we're focusing on several different skills. So part of it is literacy, being able to collaborate with others, being able to research how to identify sources that are accurate, not just the wiki pages, but actually how do you find sources that are accurate to get the information you need. Critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, and also civic information and media as far as other literacy skills. We have already implemented 5 days of this process. We have done levels of community, meaning where do you want to find your, or where do you want to focus on your issues? So again, as small as bridges or as large as the world. We did that by brainstorming issues that students thought affected them and their community. We went through those brainstorming issues, students voted on their top 5. We wrote abstracts for those. Students read the abstract, pulled out the appropriate information or the, what we're going to keep it up?
Problem statement.
Yep, problem statement, thank you. And we again voted. So then they came down to 4 topic areas. We have also done mini lessons on things like teamwork and effective communication, SMART goals, and scholarly research, again, so that they know where to find the information.
This is just an example, I don't know if you want to turn around, but an example of level 1 or our day 1 level of community, how we work with the kids and brainstorm with them so that they could then come up with their top 5. What we've done is taken them, what they voted on for their top 4, they voted, their interests 1 through 3, and then we grouped them together. So they now we're in groups of, they have 5 groups of students, and each group has anywhere from 4 to 16 members on it. That is their topic that they chose. So this is student-led.
Can I ask a quick question? So the ones that are highlighted, I don't know, those are the ones that they selected?
Actually, no, those were just the ones that they, that had the most initial votes. So like how we started this is, we just had students brainstorm like, what affects you? What affects you in your life? It doesn't matter level of community, but just like, what bugs you when you wake up in the morning? Like, what do you feel affects your life? And so they came up with this list. And so what we did is each one with tally marks. It's us saying like, did you have this? Did you put this as your issue? And so what we did from here is they actually decided to vote on 5, and then we narrowed it down to 4. So their 4 top choices were life skills in school, racism, Bridges image, and the stigmas of mental health. Oh yeah, the stigmas of mental health. And actually we have 2 groups working on Bridges image, which you're not happy about that. We all are part of this, so as a staff, we all mentor a group to help guide them in what they're doing. To culminate the project, we are doing, like I said, the e-portfolio communication. This is the rubric for it. And if I could just add to this, you can see looking at it, because we are standards-based, each category is aligned to a common core standard. And then all of these are also aligned to 21st century skills. Can you use media technology? Are you literate in using media information? Can you give a presentation, communication, collaboration? So each of these are crossed with common core standards and 21st century skills. And so this is specifically for their e-portfolio. Well, that's it. That's all good. We had actually made books the notebooks that we're using. We wanted to hand them out for you guys to get a look at it, but in saving some time, we won't do that. But can well, you can if you want. That's yours. That's for you. Is there any questions? Do you guys have anything else to add?
Mr. Schweig.
Not a question, but a comment. Great information and well done. And patterning it after IB concepts and ideas is just tremendous, because just as you indicated, all kids can learn in that format and go beyond the book types of things that have been done in the past and get these kids into that kind of environment where they're looking at skill projects from a whole different perspective. And just as you say, how you can help to mentor them while they're there and get that understanding.
So most of our assessments are based on rubrics like this, so that it is not necessarily multiple choice, true and false kinds of questions. Students do a project at each point at the end of the unit, and teachers develop rubrics that are not only student-friendly, but the teachers are able to use them specifically to be able to grade according to standards. So what I mean by that is they can get from a 0 to a 4. A 4 meaning not only do they know the standard, but they know it well enough to teach somebody else to expand on it. A 0 meaning they have not shown any kind of proficiency on it. So that's our grading scale.
I think they came up with some great projects and topics that you'd be interested in seeing the final analysis of them all.
Of this?
That's based with you that the projects that you're going to do, but especially the image that you're working on, because that's all about being a culture and a company and a living body that they do. And I know those kids will do a great job of it and look for ideas on how they can present themselves.
They're very excited about it. And again, I think it's because they got to take what they're doing.
Right.
Any other questions?
Another question?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. Weaver, item Z.
But just like as they leave, just want to thank them once again. They did an awesome job. Really excited. I think second week of June I'll be going over to Bridges to watch some of the students' presentations. So if you'd like, I don't know, I'll extend the invite. You are welcome. Just let me know and I'll convey that to Mrs. Van Hoosen if you'd like to attend. But it's a great opportunity for our kids. And I think it's really great to see some out-of-the-box thinking with taking the last little bit of the school year with the seniors gone and presenting this opportunity for the kids. So thank you to Mrs. Van Hoosen and her staff who's going home to enjoy the rest of their evening. All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit, and I will try to go quickly. Like I said earlier, the staff is just doing an awesome job, and they get very proud of what they work so hard and to do. And so I think we're running a little long, so I will try to go quickly through here. What I'm going to show you is we are going to be posting the results. We recently did a district survey and a building survey for school quality, district quality basically. It was our first step. We were going to look at, there's several other surveys in this instrument that in the future we'll probably look at utilizing next year as we go forward. But we're excited to be able to look at these survey results and to kind of get a judge of where our parents, staff, and our 8 through 12 students see us at. So I'm going to share just some of the results. I think you have it also on your devices, so you can look there. First slide is basically just asking parents. Basically, these are the parent results, by the way. Are you aware of the funding situation? Most are not, and I thought this was pretty overwhelming, is that most parents are in favor of supporting some type of initiative financially to improve the schools, the buildings, facilities, and so forth. This is a ranking of the district, basically, where you see us using an A, B, C, D, E, or DF scale, and you can see that approximately 70% A or B, and over 91% though C or better. So pretty good there. This is how well is the district trying to accomplish its mission. You can see the mission right above there. It is a little bit different from previous missions. We did a little bit of strategic planning work, which Mr. Throne will be bringing to you probably, I think, sometime in June. Mr. Throne?
We're trying.
We're trying. So we met today on it, and it is quite a lengthy process. But we changed to, as part of that process, we visited our mission and our vision. So it was changed a little bit. So just kind of like bringing your attention to that. But this kind of then also looks at how well we are living into it. Once again, pretty favorable results. That is pretty hard. I think our mission is pretty rigorous, and it is hard to live into. And I think it looks like we are trying our best. This is a question of, asking parents, should we look at bringing more curriculum, more technology into the curriculum, overwhelmingly in support, especially the way things are happening in the work world nowadays. This is just kind of looking at bus service and whether or not you can see overall, they see that we're doing a pretty good job with the buses that are running on time. Great job. Food service as well, rated very highly in the survey as well. So, and one of the reasons why we're going over this, I think I might have said it, but I just want to make sure, we're going to be posting all these results shortly on the website. So, just want to kind of get that out there so you had a chance to see them first. School buildings clean, 83% agree or strongly agree as parents that we visited, believe the buildings are pretty clean and tidy. And here are the school. Now this is for the individual parent responses. The administration, by the way, has already seen this presentation, and they have also been receiving the results, I believe. Have you not? Yes. So how would you rate the overall quality of your children's school? As you can see, excellent to good. A little bit different rating here. Over 93% see as excellent or good. So very high quality, very pleased with the school, it seems parents are. How strongly do you disagree or agree with the following statements? I thought this was really neat, is seeing, I think this is probably one of the hardest things to do as a teacher, is having been a former ELA and history teacher, trying to find situations where sometimes curriculum doesn't necessarily directly, where will I ever use this, Mr. Weaver? I mean, that was always a common refrain. Teachers are really working hard through the IB to try to make that happen, as you can see, I think, in this slide. There's a teacher to go, teacher, counselor, staff member to go with the school problem. You can see here overwhelmingly parents agree that about 83% or so. Not really great with math. You can see I wasn't helping them much this summer. There's a teacher, counselor, or staff member to whom a student go with a personal problem as well too. So that you can see that we're pretty favorable there. Now all these things are, there's always going to be some things that you can look at and say we can do a little bit better there, and that's what these results are. Building principals and administrators and teachers will go over them, use them as part of their school improvement process, look at the results and say, hey, this might be an area that we might think we would need to concentrate on a little bit. And that's what this information is used for, is to kind of give them an idea of, hey, this is something that our stakeholders think we need to improve on. So it's a suggestions for them. School-based administrators make decisions in the best interest of the students. Came back pretty favorably there as well. And the school being safe, 86% saw the school as being safe. And the discipline is being enforced fairly. So this might be something that as administrators, 31% though, I mean that's when you gotta look at these and think, oh, only 56% said they thought it was, but then you look at it 31%. So that means 31% didn't really have much contact with an administrator on discipline. So it seems to be working in a positive sense at that point. Bullying is not tolerated. Same thing, you look at this and you think, oh, okay, there's about 67% or 68% of the people that responded yes, or strongly agree or agree. We also realize we have the Obeya survey results that came back extremely positive, which does a much more deeper dive into the whole bullying issue. And so I would not necessarily use this survey for that, for judging where we're at with bullying, because the Obeya goes much more in depth and pulls that right out of the kids who are experiencing it day to day, whereas parents, they're getting secondhand information and sometimes third-hand information and so forth. But it's still, if you look at it, you still have a large percentage of people that 22% don't know. Well, that means they haven't really experienced much of it at that point. Okay. Where do you get most of your information? They get it from the kid. They're their child's teacher or newsletters. So the newsletters that go home, the monthly periodicals, so forth, help out and stuff like that. District survey, staff responses. This is from the staff. How would you grade? Most of the staff see us once again over 90-some%. Grade us out as at least being good or better. And how would you rate the district's effort to accomplish this mission? And you can see that from good to outstanding, 95% of the people basically saw us, or 94% saw us as trying to live out into the mission. For district employees to rate it out that high, I think that's pretty good, because they know all the nitty-gritty details and all the hidden stuff or whatever behind the scenes, how it all works and stuff. So I think that speaks pretty well of the district, trying to live into its mission. Once again, staff is in favor of getting more technology. And then here's the school survey staff responses. Once again, you can see 94% rate the schools as being good or excellent. And then once again, how you strongly disagree. Most of them see our administrators as living out or making decisions that are in the best interest of kids. That each other treats them with respect. School is safe, once again, and discipline is enforced fairly. And staff members and students treat each other with respect, the important component. And teachers align their lessons to matching the learning style of most students. That's differentiation and trying to match up with the student. Now, it's successfully done, but at least they are trying to work at it. And this is a comparison of Oxford parent, staff, and student responses to national benchmarks using weighted means. So then here you can see, now this survey doesn't compare individual questions, because really to do that, they got a lengthy explanation as to, they think you should be looking at the overall effect of different areas. So school quality, academic support, student support, school leadership, family involvement, safety and behavior. So this is kind of like, these would be questions of obviously around discipline. This is obviously around, are parents encouraged to come into the building, those type of questions. And I can give you more of where these questions fall, and I'll give you that part of the survey if you'd like. Just email Mr. Throne. School leadership, this is obviously, there were several questions. I didn't show you all of them that have to do with the building administration and the district administration. This is counseling services and so forth. Academic support is the type of interventions, that type of stuff, and the ability to meet different kids' needs. And then you have the school quality, which is basically the level of instruction. So you can kind of see through here, you have the elementary up at the top, and the middle school, or the secondary down at the bottom, pretty close to the national averages. A little up and down, but I don't know that I'd get too concerned, especially like, okay, this is 3.03, this is 3.00. I mean, statistically, that's not going to be much of a variance. So we're pretty close to running with the national averages. You can see up at the elementaries, we have a few areas, both the elementary, secondary, to work on, try to say, hey, this is an area for improvement, area for growth. But overall, pretty good. It seems like parents are decently satisfied with the schools. Any questions?
Question?
Good comment.
Mr.
It's
Schweik.
impressive. Geez, I mean, that's tremendous. And I think, to find out this information and then build on it is exactly where we want to be going. And all that you've done in the years that I've, setting these things up and moving on, it's sure great to see it accomplishing.
And this, by the way, I forgot this slide was here. This is the staff responses compared to national. And once again, we're not perfect. Nobody has claimed that Oxford was. And so there's areas for growth and opportunities. Otherwise, what would they have to put in their school improvement plans? So, any other questions?
Thank you, Ken.
All right. All right, we're going to move on to the world language. This is a follow-up to, the first part will be a follow-up to the presentation I had done earlier in the year, talking about looking at the world language program. We've implemented it, it's been in place now, depending on what you want to use as the starting block, 2009-10. Looking at when we first implemented this program. So we got a committee together, administrators, some IB coordinators, and looked at where we're at with the state of our world language program. So first thing we did was we looked at research, and Mr. Nukes is here so he can help me if I stumble on any of this. He was primarily responsible for this section. So, but we looked at, looking at the research, what we found was that there was some cognitive benefits for this early research, but it indicated, but there was some indication that the earlier you started, the better you did with the world language. Now, from what I understand from the literature, was a lot of that had to do with dealing with kids that were were immersed in another culture. They weren't learning the language in a setting such as ours, where they're learning it as a second language and they're not surrounded by it all the time, but they came to another country and therefore were forced to learn the language pretty quick in order to go to the grocery store, those other things. So there is a lot of research that started out saying, hey, the earlier the better, and so forth. This started to change in latest research, and that there's limited input though on situations where it's more like a school setting, where a student is learning the language as a second language, and they are not immersed in the language. Okay? So there's somewhat limited research at this point. And what it found was there are some advantages to starting early, but given the right conditions, others can catch up pretty quickly that don't start as early. And that pedagogy, motivation are significant factors, and they truly are. And cognitive benefits and other subject areas really only connected to similar language of the mother tongue. So there has to be some relationship between the second language and their spoken language as far as the benefit. We'll talk about that a little bit later, why that's important. You can see the research cited. Did I do fair justice close? For the time given, it was pretty close. All right. This has to do, the next slide is the difficulty of the different languages. We had talked about this. This was as well, just a reminder. There's 4 levels of difficulty. Mandarin Chinese, Arabic, Japanese, Korean are the examples of the level 4 languages. You can see the level 1 languages, and why this matters is it affects greatly the amount of time it takes for somebody to learn the language. Mandarin Chinese is a level 4, extremely difficult. A lot of these languages, if you know anything about them, they don't have any connection to English whatsoever. Okay? So this is an example of a chart where it shows how many hours are needed to meet intermediate proficiency, which is probably, I would say, equivalent to like a 3rd or 4th level 3 class in high school. Somewhere in there. You can see the differences in how many hours it would take, and 1 year of language instruction would take is about 120 hours. Now, you have the summers in there, you have the fact that it's not spoken consistently outside of the class, so there's a lot of factors that once you start learning this language, because most of the research, a lot of it is done with people in situations where they need to learn the language. And a lot of these times, and as you can see, this is highly motivated adult learners who have a purpose to learn. So there's not a lot of research as far as where kids are at, as far as how many hours and so forth it takes to learn. Then we also conducted a survey. We asked parents, how satisfied are you with the youngest child's progress in their current world language? And you can see 60-some% said they were satisfied to highly satisfied. Does your youngest child enjoy learning a world language at school? 55% said that they enjoy the class, at least enjoyed the class. Some minimally, a large percentage does not enjoy the class, they said. Kind of the glass half full, half empty on that question. How well did your child's elementary world language experience prepare you for your child for middle school world language instruction? You have a situation where there's like 30-some% said somewhat prepared, where another 23% minimally prepared. And I'll tell you what, a theory that I have as far as that goes is because we have a large number of kids in Chinese, is why I think this happens. And when they get to the middle school, they have to start really learning to read, write characters. Now, originally, and we've introduced that concept at the elementaries, but for a long time, it really wasn't being taught or stressed. And they've started to do so at the elementaries to kind of offload some of that. But learning the characters becomes extremely difficult, and that really starts at the middle school level. At which grade level? This was an interesting question. At which grade level do you believe your child should begin to participate in everyday world language? Overwhelming, almost 64% said kindergarten. In elementary, what is your preference for the number of days? Overwhelmingly, almost half picked, 50%, almost 50% picked they would like 5 days a week language instruction. Also, we asked them, if your child needed additional support in reading, would you be interested in having them receive the support instead of world language instruction? Almost 60%. You can see here more than that if you put them together. Say, almost 60% would say they prefer reading support for their child and to be taken out of the world language for a while. Another 26 or 27% said some kind of blend would be fine. So you can see that parents realize the importance of reading, and if my child is having some struggles, they're fine with the world language being a point of intervention. That was an important question for us as elementary principals, because that's what we've really started to concentrate on, is really trying to line up that intervention time, because we didn't want to reduce the academic time that kids were being pulled out of their ELA, math, science, and social studies classes for interventions. So that really allows us to give those kids that extra boost that are having some issues, especially K2, and not have them be affected in their classroom teachers' time. This was a question that Mr. Weaver probably wishes he had back. You know, it made sense when I was sitting in my office at 8 o'clock at night and getting ready to send the survey out, but after I sent it out, and I no sooner hit the button, I was like, oh! So, but it's too late. Sean was in Great Britain visiting family, and I was texting her, is there any way to edit this after it's out? She said, unfortunately not. So I asked parents to rank too many languages. It's one of those things that I didn't know how, I was going to go back and address it and say rank 3, but I didn't know how to do it, so I put it off to the end, and then I forgot about it. So I'm using the excuse I was tired, overworked, and in my office at 8 o'clock, and I'm sticking with it. All right. Once again, it came back overwhelmingly Spanish, and Chinese is the #1 and #2 languages, with German coming up 3rd, and French 4th. Please rank the following elementary specials in classes of importance. It was interesting to see that they want 5 days a week language instruction, but they ranked gym as #1, being important. So I do think it does speak to the fact that with the development of a child at that age, a lot of research is showing this, a lot of their academic development is based on their physical development and their ability to interact and so forth. And that's why learning at the elementary level is so hands-on, and it's important to have that engagement and to get them up and moving and everything else. That part needs to be, that gross and fine motor skills need to be developed as well too. And that development, that as it's happening, also strengthens the brain and allows it also to learn as well too. So then we looked at the data. This is kind of one of those things where it was kind of hit and miss. These are the years that we had stamp scores available. We started doing the stamp scores back, 2013-14. Mr. Schwartz, I called him up and he said, hey, we need to start seeing where we're at. And so we arranged to do the Stamp 4 test. It basically allows us to measure the kids in 4 domains: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And see where they're at in their second language. It tests both Mandarin Chinese and it tests Spanish. This is a stamp score comparison of students in one language, meaning they didn't switch. And so we went ahead, and you can see to the left, I'm not going to read you all these, but you can basically see, and this speaks to the difficulty of the languages, that the Spanish scores, and this doesn't look like tons of a difference, but when you consider that you get to level 3, the state of Michigan would grant you 2 credits of high school world language at that point. So you can see where our program is starting to match up with where the kids are expected to be, and their fluency is getting there. But what you can see though is there's quite a gap, or quite a difference between the Chinese kids and staying with it and where they get to versus the Spanish kids. This is a comparison of students who switch languages and where they get to as well too. Kids that switch Spanish to Chinese and where they progress to, and then as well as Chinese to Spanish and how far they progress in their scores. Once again, you're seeing the differences in how it's a lot easier to learn the Spanish and to get moving with that. Because you're talking about these kids, you know, going through everything that they go through in 6th grade, and now they're switching languages and starting all over. This is the amount of students that are switching in 6th grade. The first year, 2018, that's the class of data, by the way. This is class of 2018. That's because everybody was pretty much in one language and then allowed to switch. That was the first year of the programs and stuff like that. Since then, the switches have not, but it's been as big. But on overall, I think the next slide shows you the percentages. It's about a quarter of the kids are switching. When you look at it, as far as the percentage of the kids that are in Chinese, it's probably about a half, because these percentages are based on the overall number of kids. So it's about half the kids that are in Chinese are switching over to Spanish in 6th grade. This is growth scores, so that we wanted to throw this in there to show that the kids are developing over time. This is the only set of data that we had that we could show this, because we have done the stamp somewhat and we just put it in place in 10th grade. And so we really haven't had a full set of kids where we can look at 5th, 5th, 7th, and 10th grade. I think that's coming up. We're just now doing the stamp test, so we weren't able to put that data in, but we will be collecting that stamp data here shortly. But you can see the kids are making growth as they go through, and that's important to see. Any questions? Did a pretty thorough job. I'd like to thank the committee. As far as their participation, they were awesome. They did a great job. I mean, they all have day jobs and everything else, and they did a fantastic job pitching in and helping out with this and getting this all presented. And happy to say my state program evaluation is done as well too. So thank you. Kill two birds with one stone. So we're good there. And
Ms. Guthrie has a question.
oh, you did. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Mr. President, no problem. I just wondered, what's a good stamp score? I don't know, like when I saw the stamp scores up on the slides. Where do we, is there such a thing as a good stamp score? Where do we stand?
Well, that's a hard question to answer, because a 3 is a good score. That means you've earned at least 2 credits of high school, whatever world language you're in. And especially, it's also then relates to the language in which you're being tested in. And as you can see, what might be a 3 in Spanish probably would, maybe getting close to a 2 in Chinese. So it's all relative to the language, but I think our ultimate goal is trying to get more of these kids, because what you're seeing is all kids, all abilities thrown together. So there's a lot of kids in there that are getting 4s and 5s. So it's a little bit misleading, because there's very few districts that educate every child and require them to be in a language program K through 10, and you're dealing with all these different levels of ability. So it's hard to answer. I would not say that there's a certain score average-wise that we would want to see. We need to eventually dive into these a little bit deeper and say, like, hey, our top kids should be scoring this amount. Our middle kid, yeah, an average might be this amount, but where we want to really see that growth, because it's just like in my family. My daughter moved here in 5th grade. Well, I moved her in this year. She wasn't living by herself, I guess. We had put her out. She was all sorts of trouble. But she arrived at Lakeville in 5th grade. In 1 year, and I'm not saying this because I'm a proud parent, in 1 year, she actually, at the time, we were skipping kids over that had really advanced in their language. She tested and had one of the highest stamp scores to skip over 1A and go into 1B. And she had hardly any, no language, she hadn't had any world language up in Lapeer. So that motivation, and the reason why I share that story is, A, I know the person involved, but I also know that she's very motivated. So that motivation really is key to having somebody learn that language. That part, and having a reason and so forth, and it doesn't always kick in for every child. And so that's where I would say, those stamp scores can be, it's hard to say what should be the expectation. But I would say at least a 3.
Thank you.
Okay. And I got one more, and I promise you I will not blanket your agenda again for at least this school year.
Fire away, Ken.
All right, glad you're hanging with me. Now that leads me to this, which this is not the committee's work. I want to make sure that is clear right away. This is in consultation with Mr. Throne. This is my recommendation purely at this point as to what direction we go with the World Language Program. This is proposed changes at the elementary. Due to the oncoming 3rd grade reading bill and the necessity to look at making sure that all kids are reading by 3rd grade, and this is 99% driven, this recommendation by this, I am recommending that we switch slowly but surely over to all elementaries teaching Spanish. It is a better fit for all kids. That is the chief reason, is that we are trying to make sure that these kids can read. There is benefit, as I've shown in the presentation, to kids learning a language that is similar to their own. And that happens when a child learns Spanish. There is no connection between the Chinese. It is extremely, if you've ever been in a classroom, It is extremely difficult, and the level of difficulty for the kids, especially for all kids that are at Clear Lake, DA, and OE, it is extremely difficult for all kids to meet this, especially if you look at the fact that we are now going to be pulling out kids for intervention for reading during the world language. For them to keep any type of traction, I think the language that they're all being instructed in needs to be easier, so that they have a better grasp and have a better chance to acquire the language. And if they miss sections of the language instruction, they're better able to A, get help, B, come back into the class and catch back up. And then C, like I said, it also will benefit their acquiring of reading skills and other things as well too. I would also recommend, as you can see from the survey, that we stick with the 30 minutes 5 days a week, and that it starts in kindergarten. Parents overwhelmingly see the benefit to a world language. I would also like to look at and explore the opportunity, because I know parents are going to want to have the opportunity for Chinese maybe in elementary. I don't know how this would look exactly, but look at trying to offer a track for those parents that would like for their kids to take Chinese at the elementary level. Maybe offer it right now, brainstorming, maybe after school, and allow them, kind of like the orchestra program, opt into the program. I still have to work with Mr. Brown, he still cringes, but see what options there are. You know, I would love to be able to offer during the day, but with an elementary schedule, I honestly, I don't think we can make it work, so I don't want to promise that. But I do think, you know, and I still got to work with Mrs. Whedon. I hadn't gotten to that yet, but looking at how we can transport kids over, and really Clear Lake would be the only difficulty. I would not offer this at Lakeville Leonard. They've not offered that language in the past. They have smaller populations, it doesn't make sense. But look at offering it for Clear Lake. I don't think there'd be any issue with getting DA kids over to OE, because I think they pick up at DA and go to OE, correct? And so that it would just be, how can we get maybe Clear Lake kids over, so parents just have to pick them up at the end, and then we can flex a Chinese teacher's time to be able to, or two of them, to be able to offer. For right now, next year, it would be looking at maybe a K2 offering, and then as it's phased out in 3-5, look at then maybe offering a 3-5 class, so that then kids could then participate still in that Chinese program and have that little bit of a head start on the Chinese as well too. Not positive about them both being enrolled in Spanish and Chinese, but I couldn't figure out you know, what they would do while the other kids are in Spanish at this point. That we can leave to the elementary principals to solve. They're a pretty intelligent group. And then switch out 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade slowly but surely, as those kids rolled up. The only issue that I would see with that plan is probably the kids, the 2nd graders that have had 2 years of language instruction, but I don't know that they're that far along that the switch would be that dramatic for them. But also I think too, the reason why I proposed K2 is because of staffing concerns. And the fact that that allows us to consolidate the staffings, switch out DA, which is K2 completely. It allows us to then switch out half of Clear Lake as well too, and make that somewhat efficient on the staffing. Proposed changes at the middle school. Next year I propose that we start looking at maybe offering other opportunities in languages and exploring that opportunity for parents, that if they would really like to, and I'm talking more like online opportunities, and if there is any seated opportunities, we could explore that, but I'm looking at mostly online opportunities so that kids understand and realize that they could possibly learn languages. Because I think that motivation factor is huge. You have to want to learn that language. And right now, many kids see it as they're being forced into this language because of where they live, and not necessarily a choice that they want to participate in. Now, we can't solve that. I can't offer every language to every kid in elementary and so forth, and options. I can't offer both English or Spanish and Chinese at the elementary levels. There's just no way with staffing to do that. But I think with Spanish, if you do that at the elementary levels, you end up with a language that's more accessible to the kids. And it gets them learning that second language, gets them geared up for that. And then if they really want, if we offer the elective track and kind of pull that in, they can do it there and gear up for middle school, or they can maybe gear up at middle school and make the switch there if they want to. A lot of the research shows that once you start learning a language and you get exposed to that, you start learning languages a little bit easier. Now, to be fair and to be honest, I don't know how that relates necessarily to Spanish to Chinese, because it is such a different language. But I do think it's still a necessary language, and I think by offering the elective track, we still honor our commitment to offering Chinese. My concern is, just like I said, doing it en masse to all kids, I don't think is academically appropriate. Looking at expanding, continue to allow kids to switch. 17-18 also explore expanding ASL track in 8th grade for students. So start beginning those conversations. 18-19 start looking for possible implementation of an ASL down at the middle school. Based on, this has a lot to do with, depending on course sequencing, teacher certification, interest, and so forth. But it gives me a year to kind of make the changes. I had talked with Mr. Throne about this. It gives me a year to kind of make the changes K2, to get that up and going, and then look at trying to grow the ASL track at the middle school and giving that option to kids as well too. And then looking at where we can go. Plus, quite honestly, right now, as Mrs. Latowski can attest, there's not a lot of people, as the state has currently certified people, there's not a lot of people around that are available to teach in a seated environment, ASL. They're more likely to do more of an online. And for middle school kids, quite honestly, that's a viable option for a few kids, but for the most part, online learning at a 7 to 8, when it's not their main core of instruction, is really not always the best direction for that age level. If the parents have made a commitment to online, it's a great option. It's a fantastic option. But if it's just one course and all the others, they're learning a different way, they tend not to be quite as successful and get as much out of the class. But this would give us time to grow into that and to really look at that program and see what we could do with it. Proposed changes at the high school. 17-18 explore availability of offering, once again, more options to languages. Once again, probably more online, making sure kids are aware of that so that parents and everybody realizes there's a little bit more of an option. But wouldn't probably look at anything implementation-wise further down the road. They do offer some languages already, but really looking at trying to make that more of an option for parents. Once again, 18-19, expand the ASL track of course sequencing based off of what possible moves we start making at the middle school, so that sequencing lines up, because if you start offering at the middle school, then you got to expand maybe your offerings up at the high school, because as the kids go through. Because we're still an NYP school, and you're still required to be in a language 6 through 10. And really, quite honestly, to be fair, they should not be switching. It's supposed to be consistent language, but we do work on a few areas where the IB does allow you to move kids in and out as their needs suggest they need to be. And then last, introduce a global language seal / endorsement on the diploma for students who learn a second world language. Utica does this already. This is modeled off of that, plus there is an initiative right now at the state level for a seal of biliteracy. We are doing everything basically that would qualify us for this. This would be an additional seal or endorsement that says, yes, you earned a certain score on the STAMP test, you took certain classes, you can see some of the qualifiers here, but it allows our kids to be more marketable, so to speak, to a college, and brings it to their attention. Something that would go on transcripts as well too, that they earned it, so that they did all this work. We want to encourage academic success and progress, and we want kids to challenge themselves. It would be, I think, foolish not to then honor them with some type of distinction as well too. Any questions, concerns, comments?
Mr. Schweik.
I'm going to go with a comment. Well thought out, and the impressive thing that I see in your presentation is it's data driven. To go through surveys and make your recommendations based on that kind of information from a variety of sources is just phenomenal. And I know this will probably take some tweaking in that. You've come a long way, Pilgrim.
When I used to fly by my seat of my pants with you.
Just
Like
saying.
that was our secret.
Just saying.
Okay,
Is there anything else now? Unfortunately, I mean, the hard part of this, just to finish up, Mr. Alexander. Good fire.
I've been called yours. Sure am in about 20 minutes.
There are going to be staffing implications. And we are going to be losing members of our Oxford family. That comes with every decision, sometimes not with every decision, but with many of our decisions that we have to make. I feel awful, but I also feel like I also have to do what's in the best interest of the children of Oxford, and I truly believe the proposal that I put forward does that. So, and then I got one last thing, and I am done and off the stage. That was it. We've got two purchases that I will be coming to you next board meeting for approval, but honestly, we're probably going to go ahead and start moving on them, but I wanted to make you aware unless you have like major concerns. They've already been bid out. They go through Mr. Throne, the state bid site, REMC, thank you. And so they already have like the best prices we can get. These are like our guaranteed prices, and so they've already been bid out. We are looking at making improvements at OMS, and we are investing, because Mrs. Beasley whines all the time. No, she doesn't. Well, I should say she learned from myself. She's my assistant for 3 years. So we are switching out her PLTW labs. They need an upgrade. They're having all sorts of issues. The computers are crashing. We can't predict exactly where the bond is actually going to fall or anything, and we need to move on this and get them upgraded. They're having difficulties running the software. That purchase is going to be $127,000.
Can you do that number again?
Yeah, you choke on it a little bit. $127,910. So that's 100 computers. That's replacing all 3 labs, and literally it's a critical need. So if you have any questions on that one, Mrs. Beasley could probably speak to that a little bit. Sorry to put her on the spot. And then as well, OVA is looking to purchase laptops, which by law they have to present to the kids when they enroll in their classes. And we need to do an upgrade of those computers. After a few years, they start having issues. And as you know, probably with your own devices, that every 4 or 5 years you have to replace them. Otherwise, they can't keep up with everything. And that is going to be buying some 200 laptops, which they run a little bit cheaper than the desktops, because you don't have the monitors and everything else with it and other things. And that's going to run about $124,600. So I don't know if you have any comments, concerns. If you want me to wait, we can wait, but we want to have as much time for the summer. We've got to prep all these machines, which is a huge task, getting them all imaged, all set up, wired and everything else for the lab, and then imaging all 200 laptops. So we'd like to try to get them going, and we don't have our techs all summer. So we'd like to try to get on it as quickly as possible. I apologize for doing it this way, but there really wasn't any other way. Like I said, we would like to start, but if you have any major concerns or anything, I will certainly hold off.
Question?
Yes.
Just a question, maybe to you or Sam, like, is it gonna be out of the 16-17 budget or 17-18, and if so, what line item?
Sure, so this would be the 16-17 budget, both of these purchases, these prospective purchases. It would be out of the curriculum budget for obviously Ken's portion, Dacia's portion I should say, more specifically, and then it would be also out of the general fund for OVA as well, out of their department. So 16-17 again for each of these, general fund.
And there's no money in those accounts at this time?
There is.
Further questions? Thank you, Ken. Oh, yes.
Can we make a motion at this time to make that purchase, or do we need to see something in writing?
You want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we complete the PLTW lab purchase for $127,910 at the middle school, and also for OVA purchase laptops at the cost of $124,600 as per the REMC bid out of the 2016-17 budget.
Second?
A second.
Second, Ms. Guthrie. Any discussion? Question. Those bids were competed, obviously.
That's what the REMC is, it's like a state guaranteed consortium, state guaranteed like prices that are pretty low.
And
As a part of REMC, just for clarification, the last 3 years, the state has put out what's called the spot bid price. And the past few years, we've actually got reimbursed so many dollars, depending upon the device that we purchase and spend. The state no longer has that money, but they continue to put out this, what's called spot pricing, and allow that for any school in the state to purchase. So it is competitively bid, it's competitively bid at the state level. I think technically it's a spot price, but that is a component of REMC, but I don't get too technical.
Okay. I'm good.
You're good?
Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, that was the tactic. Wear you down.
Good thing you didn't put that first. That's waiting for
Can we do the bad purchases?
All right.
He knows how to put together a lineup.
Give them cheese and they'll vote for anything. Goodness gracious.
Carry with apples.
All right. We have a couple more recommendations for action under item 6, curriculum and instruction. So if we want to move forward, we can do so at this time. Dr. Reese?
Sure. Move to add kindergarten curriculum to the existing Oxford Virtual Academy curriculum as presented.
Support, Mr. Schweig. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll go with
Mr.
Move
Schweig.
to approve the IB personal project as presented.
Support? Support, Ms. Guthrie. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You've got another one here. Mr. Stepping?
I'll move to approve the Acting 1, Advanced Acting, and SAT curriculum as presented.
Support, Ms. Schaefer. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. One final one. Mrs. Guthrie.
Move to approve the developmental kindergarten curriculum as presented.
Support?
I'll support.
Support, Ms. Schaefer. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Item 7, finance and operation, Mr. Barna. Wouldn't think we were ever going to get to you.
So what we have here is the approval or the disapproval of the 17-18 Oakland Schools proposed budget. So I'll let Mr. Schweig take it away.
Just a quick thing, in the interest of time, I picked this budget up last week from Ms. Bono, but I was able to crunch the numbers, so I just want to run a few things past you on some of the items and activities as some of these things jumped out at me. Here's what I do want to share. Considering people at that. I do want to share, though, that a little bit, just Oakland Schools Enterprises overview. Oakland Schools is one of 56 intermediate school districts, ISDs, established in Michigan in 1962. ISDs are regular service agencies that provide support services to constituent district school personnel that are best delivered regionally as measured by cost, size, and quality advantages. Oakland Schools is an autonomous, tax-supported public school district governed by Michigan General School Law. I just want to point that out because sometimes I think we just hear the name Oakland Schools. And what they do, Oakland School provides increasing student achievement, serving the diverse needs of schools, and decreasing costs and increasing efficiencies. And this is what my last statement is.
They're funded. Our proposed total funding for fiscal year 2016-2017 for Oakland schools is $309 million. So that's quite a commitment to our intermediate school district, and I recommend that we approve the budget. I think somebody else needs to make this, and I.
Make your motion, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the approval of the 2017-2018 Oakland Schools proposed budget.
Support? Support Dr. Brazington. Any discussion? I will say that there is some discussion about management of the money. $309 million is a lot of money. I think they're doing a very fine job of it. They did have to borrow from their fund balance, though, as we discussed. So this is happening all over the place. So I just thought it was important to know that even the ISD is sometimes borrowing from the fund balance. So, yep. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mike, for taking the time to do that. And I've done it before. It's not the easiest of perusing.
It is.
I won't lie and say I wrote it all. I did. All right, we have item B.
We've been working diligently, the whole team, administratively, with all of our union groups in regards to union negotiations, which play a key role in our budget development for 17-18. But what also plays a key role is what I'm going to hand out to you, and this is was provided to us from Oakland Schools last week. And it's really indicative of the funding, or maybe the lack thereof, from the state. And so what this does is basically compares the possible projected per pupil increases for 17-18 for many public school districts across the state of Michigan next year, 17-18, and shows what the projected increases for our prison funding would be as well. So just for those that don't see this, it's showing a per pupil foundation allowance of $100 per student next year in Michigan, but then it shows $1,480 of an increase for our prison increases. So I just thought that was very interesting comparison. So why I'm bringing this up is because as I stated here, we're developing the 17-18 budget as currently speaking for the 17 for the general fund and all the other funds. And the biggest component again is our per pupil funding. We are also, as I mentioned earlier, we are negotiating. We've successfully negotiated with the teachers union. We're still under negotiations with 3 of our other unions, and so it's still a work in process. And so I will be coming to you with a detailed budget for not only an amended budget for this year, 16-17, but again, more importantly, 17-18 original budget, which will incorporate everything that we either do know or do not know at this particular point. Many of you have seen the headlines in the Free Press, the Oakland Press, you name it, online, about the lack of support for public school funding next year at the state level. But it's not just at the state level, it's also at the federal level. And that was just out there in the news today about the severe cuts that are projected to public education for 17-18. So why I'm bringing this up, it's very relevant, it's very important to us, but it's still a moving target. And so I will be coming to you on June 13th at our budget hearing meeting with hopefully a lot more detail, and I will be going, as I did last year, over our budget at a very finite level to show you what our projections are for both revenue as well as expenses. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Sam. Item C, 2017 bond financing discussion.
Yes. Yeah. Jesse Nelson from MBA is going to go over an update to our bond plan that we discussed a few weeks back. Jesse, I don't know if you'd like me, I can run.
I know, that'd be great if you
Okay,
could.
absolutely.
Just a quick update, if you remember earlier this year, maybe at the end of last year, we were doing some discussions on what capital improvement funding may be available while leaving the current debt service millage rate the same at 7.9, and what funding can be available for that. We were waiting for some figures to come in order to finalize that number. The previous numbers we looked at were only estimates. Working with Sam, we did get the 2017 taxable value figure with a new property tax value, and that allowed us to update the numbers and finalize as to what the financing may be, and so it's not just giving an update to the board. So on the screen, the first part of the presentation, so on the left-hand side I have some various categories that we were tracking, and then in the middle I have where the actual results were, what our last February 2017 estimate that we looked at and what the difference is. So the good news is that the 2017 taxable value came in about $40 million higher than what we budgeted when having this discussion before. So that's good news, is that produces the more ability to again do more improvements and keep the millage rate at 7.9. The growth percentage overall was 4.12%. In our February discussion or estimate, we had 2%, so we were 2.12% higher there. The total capital improvement project that we were looking at now is $28,280,000. Before it was about $25 million, so about a $3.2 million increase. And then the bottom categories, the total debt service millage rate required, the actual and our estimate is 7.9, which is a zero increase. So it looks like now, based upon these estimates and these figures coming in, that we can do a $28,280,000 project, and again, leave the millage rate at 7.9. So that's just a brief comparison of where we are now to our last discussion in February. The next slide is a summary of the proposed capital improvement plan. So if you look at the far right-hand column, it says total proposal. So again, the total project is $28,280,000. But that's proposed to be issued in 3 bond series or 3 projects. The first one being for $9,415,000 in 2018, $9,325,000 in 2020, and $9,540,000 in 2022. The reason that we propose to do it in stages, there are some financial benefits to that. By not immediately adding $28 million of new bonds opposed to our existing, that helps us keep the millage rate down. By having those 2-year gaps between issuing bonds, it allows us more time to repay those bonds and our existing bonds. So it's nice to have those 2-year increments. It also allows us to be flexible with our capital improvement plan. Because if we get to 2020, for example, and maybe a boiler improvement that we're waiting to 2022 becomes more important, or we need to do that immediately, you have the ability to make that change or change in priorities. So that's really nice. If we go out and did the project immediately and we spent all the money, we wouldn't have anything in reserve for those prior changes, so you have the ability and flexibility to do that. One of the other nice things that's in this plan that a lot of school districts are doing is they're taking into account their bus fleet. Different buses become used or obsolete over time, so you can see in each series there's an allowance to replace a number of buses and stage that over time, as opposed to replacing the fleet all at once and then having it come due again all at once. So that's also in there. And then one thing to keep in mind regarding technology equipment and then also bus purchases, the state has a useful life requirement on those. For example, instructional technology has a useful life of 5 years. So that means if you're going to buy 100,000 of iPads, you have to show in your bond you're going to have 100,000 of principal payments within the first 5 years. So it's not legally or allowable to finance an iPad over 30 years. That's just not allowed. And it makes perfect sense because we know that technology is just not going to last that long. And then the buses also have 6 years. So with all those items that are in the bus's technology, each bond issue will have those principal payments paid off within those time frames. So this is a summary of the capital improvement plan that we have now. And so that would be 2018, 2020, 2022 for a total proposal of $28,280,000.
And this is the application, the preliminary application that we'll be proposing to take to the Michigan Department of Treasury on June 7th. So this is the high-level version of that bond application.
Then on the last slide, what this is a comparison of the estimated debt service millage rate. The blue line is where we are presently, and the gold line then is with this proposal. So if you look at the very top of the line, you can see the 7.9 where we are now. That would be continued about 3 years longer than the estimated where we are now. So to do this project, we'll be able to keep the millage rate the same and only have to extend the 7.9 millage rate by 3 years. So that's really nice that we're able to get these improvements in the stages and only have to keep the 7.9 3 years later. The school loan revolving fund program that we participate in, we have a final mandatory repayment date of 2037. So that means we need to repay all our balances that we have outstanding. So as you can see, that's right when the 7.9 drops off to 1.13. So overall, we're very pleased with the result in taxable value growth. It's great to have the ability to leave the millage rate the same and to get these improvements to the district. And at the same time, the 7.9 is only being extended 3 years. And then after that, it would drop off significantly, as you can see from this chart. So I know that was kind of fast, but that's pretty much, we were just waiting for that figure to come in, and that's where we are now. And I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, there's a recommendation for action on that presentation on the finance and operation, number 7. Mr. Schweig.
Move to approve the Michigan Department of Treasury 2017 bond application as presented.
Support? Support, Mrs. Guthrie. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item D, Michigan Department of Treasury 2017 bond application. D.
Well, that, you just done.
Okay. All right, so close it off.
Well said.
All right. Yep. Item 8, human resources.
Okay. Well, I am very pleased tonight to, as Sam mentioned, to announce that the OEA contract, Oxford Education Association, has been approved by the group. I do want to really point out that it was a very collaborative process, very much appreciated with the OEA team and the board's team. We worked very diligently to come to an agreement that we felt was fair for everyone. And we definitely went back and forth and talked about what was best for the district. So I think that when you have a group that will work together like that, you really need to appreciate it and realize that we're fortunate here in Oxford. So thank you to Jim Gibbons and his team. And I have a motion for the board.
Okay. We have a recommendation for action under human resources. Ms. Schaefer.
Move to approve the tentative agreement between the Oxford Education Association and Oxford Community Schools for a period of September 1st, 2017 through August 31st, 2020, as presented and previously discussed.
Support?
Support.
Support, Mrs. Guthrie. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Good job.
Please tell the team and the staff, once again, we appreciate the hard work and thank you very, very much. Okay, item 9, student services.
We are busy with audits and enrollment and nothing to present.
Okay, thank you. Item 10, unscheduled audience participation. None?
No, we have one.
Oh,
Me,
oh, Mr. Gibbons.
yes. I want to begin by thanking the board for investing in the teachers in our district with the approval of the OA contract this evening. This contract and its length represent an important commitment to the teachers that work with the students of Oxford every day and helps continue to demonstrate to our staff that we are all part of Team O. On behalf of the OAA bargaining team, the executive board, and the teachers, I want to thank the administrative team, especially Tim, Nancy, Ken, Sam, and Denise, for the great collaborative work that we did to arrive at a completed contract. It is great to be able to solve problems in a positive way while keeping our students at the heart of what is most important in our schools. In any negotiation, things can get very tense quickly when we work through our differences, but both sides of the bargaining team made sure that we remember that at the end of the day, we're all on the same side and trying to do what is best for all those who are part of the Oxford family. So that's part one of what I want to say to you guys. I do feel I need to address the board about some issues that have been troubling me for some time. And in the role that I have as parent, teacher, community member, and as OEA president, I think I'm in a unique position to say something about these issues. And I will preface that I'm not speaking on behalf of the union tonight. I'm speaking on behalf of me. I want to start by saying that I was in the audience for the press conference that was held 2 weeks ago today at the high school regarding the 13 reasons why not program that the school was in the midst of. That press conference and the manner in which our students handled themselves was one of the most impressive things that I have seen in my 25 years of teaching. Simply put, the kids were amazing. It was truly the best of Oxford on display for a local and national audience. Unfortunately, I found out the next day that not 6 hours later, some of the worst of Oxford was put on display at our school board meeting. Over the last several months, I have continually heard stories about the behavior of board members at your board meetings. I'm not sure that you all have any idea that your actions and words are filtering back out to the staff and students of our district because people are sharing what they witness either at these meetings or when it's replayed on cable. And what they are sharing is not positive. Some of you, not all, but some, have been demeaning to one another, unkind to one another, and untrusting of one another, and untrusting of the procedures that you all should follow in having discussion and making decisions. You are role models to the staff and students for how leaders should function together. And you're all part of the same team, Team O, and should always be working together to make the district better. That does not mean you have to agree on every issue, but the manner in which you disagree has got to change. It is okay to disagree without being disagreeable, and we demonstrate that in bargaining every time we sit down together. When I hear about what happens at a board meeting, it should not be about who went after who or who got into it with a staff member, but what great things you did for our district. And you did many things that were great tonight. And that's the message that I want people to hear. Another issue that I've heard concerns about is that some of you have, on more than one occasion, been viewed as attacking staff members who are doing no more than presenting information to you about different programs in the district. And you're injecting your personal feelings toward the program in the manner in which you question the individuals. They're doing nothing more than the job they've been asked to do. If presenting to the board comes to be seen as going in front of a firing squad to answer got-you type questions, teachers and administrators will not be willing to continue to come forward and give you the information that you need. I'm not suggesting that you rubber stamp your decisions, but that you allow for these individuals to come to meetings prepared in advance for what you are going to ask by asking them your questions in the time between your board packet goes out and the actual meeting. This allows these staff members to prepare for your question or concern. You get your answer, concern addressed, and all of you and all of us look professional. I also have a concern that some of you may be overstepping your role as board members and getting too involved in the day-to-day operations of the district. My understanding of the role of board members is to oversee the superintendent, set policy and budget for the district. It is not to be involved in the decisions of hiring or firing individual staff members of setting teachers' individual classroom curriculum or of weighing in on the application of discipline matters, except when that matter comes before you for action. This involvement strains the trust that all employees have for making decisions in their roles, because they have to be concerned that a board member who should not be involved is going to become involved and overrule or push to overrule that decision. This does not and will not lead to a successful school district. I know many of you very well, and those that I don't know well, I still have absolute confidence that I can say this: you are all Wildcats, and that you all want what is best for the district and its students. You have to remember that you're role models and that the staff and students are watching. I want you to know that I think some of your actions and words and the unprofessional nature that you have been conducting some meetings are hurting our district. I may be hypocritical by sitting here and saying all of this and making a spectacle of myself, and I have been wrestling with the decision to come and speak to you, but I feel that what happened 2 weeks ago was the straw that broke the camel's back. We have a tremendous community, a tremendous district, a fantastic staff, and most importantly, the best students in the world. We all deserve more than what we were seeing from our board at times. And my guess is that you all know this as well. I know it may seem as if I'm lecturing you or grandstanding, but I'm really just trying to point out what I've seen and heard, and I'm asking that you all reflect on what I've said and try to come to a better understanding and agreement about your roles and how you want to represent yourselves and Oxford schools to our community and students. So I know that we had this great time celebrating the OEA contract, but because of what happened 2 weeks ago, I wanted to say thank you, but I also wanted you to know what's going on in your district. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Okay, any further? Okay. Clarification, Mr. Drone.
None.
Scheduled activities, nothing to add. There is a list building that has gone out to the district parents. Graduations are coming up. We have Bridges graduation, we have senior all-night party, we have graduation, we have OSAC, which is OVA, we have kindergarten graduations, we got them all. So please take a look if you have a chance, attend them. They are the highlight of this job. So for you new board members, they're absolutely the best reason why we do what we do, is to see those kids finish. And that is the most important thing, is the finish line. So let's make sure we have an opportunity to get there, we'll get there. And those should all be on the website. So final board comments. Mr. Schweig.
Let's do it. I want to thank Jim for assessment and giving us some ideas on how we can improve and what we do, and we're always interested in that. I know you very well, and I appreciate the unvarnished truth, and we'll work on it. And those are things that we can all do to improve as we have our committee meetings and we work together to become a better governing board. Also, in that vein, looking forward to our discussion as we go on with how we meet the student community thing that Tom was progressing. I think that'll help a little bit in terms of what we're looking at doing, better communication. So looking forward to those.
Okay, great. Dr. Bracington?
Sure. First of all, I appreciate Mr. Wolf this evening. I appreciate having the chance to meet him and the hard work of the hiring committee. So thank you for all those involved. The curriculum instruction department, the changes that they recommended, I know represents hundreds of hours of work of our teachers and other people in Ken's department. Thank you to the presenters and to all the staff behind the scenes for all their curriculum work. And I appreciate having a curriculum ahead of time so I could ask specific questions ahead of time. It was, as Jim mentioned, just so easy just to call up and say I have a question about it. So thank you for that. I'm sure Ken and Tim struggled with the decision for the district world language recommendations. Change is difficult, especially when it involves people. So I appreciate how well thought out that decision was. I need to send a special thank you to Mrs. Petrus. Not only is she just a phenomenal teacher and presenter, but personally my daughter was involved in POSA last year, and She's gone into the medical field because of her leadership and guidance, so she will be hard shoes to fill, but I know that the interview pool will be deep because Oxford's a great place to work. Once again, congratulations to the OEA leadership team and to Mrs. Latowski and her team for negotiating a 3-year contract. There are very few districts in the state that are in the position to be able to offer a contract of this length, and it speaks volumes of the relationship we have with our OEA. Research shows that there's no greater influence on student achievement than our classroom teachers, and it is money well spent in our contract with the OEA. So thank you to all. Finally, in response to the meeting 2 weeks ago that Mr. Gibbons mentioned at the May 9th board meeting, I do need to set the record straight regarding comments made by Mr. Donnelly and Mr. Stevick. While they are certainly entitled to their opinions, it's unfortunate those opinions were not based on fact. I watched the May 9th board meeting a few days ago on our local cable station, hoping that I somehow misunderstood the comments that they made. Unfortunately, there was no misunderstanding, and I remain appalled that they felt justified in attacking my character at a public meeting, and even further dismayed that President DeLisandro allowed it. I have since talked to Mr. Donnelly and appreciate his willingness to reach out to me for further clarification. I want to assure all members of the board and the public I did go through the proper channels to determine how I could best communicate my thoughts on Superintendent Throne's international travel. I did this first in an email I sent to Superintendent Throne and President DeLisandro on March 6th, stating I am not interested in Superintendent Throne pursuing international partnerships that take him away from the day-to-day operations of the district. While Mr. DeLisandro knew I would not be present and had expressed my difference of opinion on that subject, international partnerships was discussed at the March 21st meeting. I was not aware of that fact until I reviewed the board meeting minutes on March 27th. International travel was not included on the March 21st agenda, nor was there any vote taken at the March 21st meeting. On March 27th, I notified President DeLisandro, Mrs. Bono, and Superintendent Throne of my concern about the discussion of international travel. I emailed President DeLisandro asking how I could best state my position to the board, and he replied that in an email that my advice to you is to state your position during this evening's meeting. As advised, I expressed my concern about international travel at the March 28th meeting, and after the meeting, in an email, I expressed my appreciation to President DeLisandro and Superintendent Throne for giving me the opportunity to share my opinion about international travel with the entire board. About 2 months later, Superintendent Throne emailed the entire board clarifying what board governance meant on the May 9th board meeting agenda. He stated in an email, "This is a topic where you can discuss how you will all agree to work, communicate, hold each other accountable, etc. This should be a time for you all to discuss in general terms what you expect of each other, and if there are concerns, how do you discuss them in an appropriate manner?" Again, the word generally. How do you want to function generally as a board? The accusations made by Mr. Donnelly and Mr. Stepick at the May 9th board meeting was anything but general. Their comments were very specific. They were directed toward me and about me, and it truly was politics at its worst. Instead of discussing the very important topic of accountability as a board member and ethics of a board member, it got into an unfortunate arena. Mr. Stepick and Mr. Donnelly's comments took the meeting in a very different direction than originally intended. Again, I want to clearly state I did nothing wrong, nothing unethical. The public deserves better from our elected officials, and I deserve better from the people I serve with. I have always and will always continue to be transparent with the public who has entrusted me to serve on his behalf as a board member. I am reading this statement because I will not allow my character to be publicly called into question without rebuttal. During the meeting 2 weeks ago, I was too stunned by Mr. Donnelly's and Mr. Stepick's rants to respond. The public's interests are best served with honest, professional dialogue at meetings open to the public. The insinuations made against me at the May 9th board meeting were unprofessional and unwarranted. As Mr. Gibbons stated earlier this evening, I am hopeful we can put this issue behind us and focus on why we were all elected. Thank you.
Ms. Schaefer. back?
No?
Okay.
I want, I completely support Joyce in what she just said and presented to the board and to the public.
Thank you, Jim, for raising it.
Ms. Guthrie?
Thank you, Mr. President. That is a hard act to follow. Thank you very much for sharing what you did, and thank you very much, Mr. Gibbons, for your comments. I had a lot of positive things that I wrote down tonight during our meeting, and if it's okay, I would like to absolutely not ignore what we have just heard, but I'd like to just say thank you so much to all of the teachers who presented, really who have presented to us since I've been on the board. I've really loved hearing about all these things tonight. I think I have to repeat myself and say I kind of want to come back to school at Oxford. So if it's okay, you can enroll a 51-year-old in kindergarten and I'll actually learn math for the first time, I think. Actually, not the first time. I think I relearned a little math when I was subbing. So that was helpful. I would like to say that I am very proud to be a board member and serve with all of you. And I'm hoping that this is going to balance us out a little bit and we're going to get back to a good place because, man, do we have a lot to celebrate. Congratulations to Nancy and to Mr. Gibbons and to everyone who was involved in the contract. I always do this wrong. The ODA contract. Sorry. That's such a huge win, and it's such an important point that it was collaborative. I work, as you well know, in a company, among a company where there is not a lot of collaboration in that same situation. It's a very difficult fight. So it's, that's true for, I think, a lot of other companies. So to your point, Mrs. Latowski, I think we are grateful and should continue to be grateful. So I just, and we will miss Mrs. Peters so much. I had so much fun working with her when I was teaching, and I just hope that we're able to continue the fantastic programs that she and all the others have started. I just think it's fantastic what we're doing. We're awesome. So go Team O, big time. And thank you all. Thanks for enduring this meeting too. Right there. But thank you, and I'm really looking forward to continuing to work together on behalf of our district.
Thank you. Mr. Stepik.
Thank you. Thanks to Ken and all the massive amount of work that went into all that curriculum presentation. That's awesome. And all the changes that you're making, that's really great. And definitely needed to continue that in Oxford. You're a great man to do it. Congratulations to Jim and Nancy, both your teams. That's awesome to have a long deal like that. That's great. That just really shows a really great commitment both sides. I agree with you regarding the 13 reasons. I think that was a great program, and I think we need to come up with more of that. And I agree that this board needs some healing, and I apologize to Joyce. But I don't want to go into that. That's something we can do privately. But I think we have a long way to go. I've been on this board for a couple of years, and I'm proud to be a member of this board. And I think I've done some pretty nice things for this board and for this district as a whole, and all the other stuff that I do as well. So
Conley?
Ken, I think I want to come back to high school as well.
Statute of limitations, you can't do it.
If only algebra was taught in the late 70s, like they're talking today. Amazing that collaboratively trying to make real life situations so that you're putting a cell tower someplace, and I could understand that and enjoy that math. So, but all together, it was just fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay. That leaves me. Kind of echo what everybody said. I want to thank Jim. You know, it seems like every contract that gets negotiated, it's kind of got to be for you like you had another child. You've accomplished something, and you know you got to see that through 3 years, and then gosh, it all starts over again. So, but I know you don't do it on your own. So please take it back to your group again and thank them. But I think even more importantly is we have to understand and really hear what you said. It's easy to take all the thank yous and all the good that happens, and it's not easy to sit there and say, you know what, King, you're not wearing the appropriate clothing. So I think as a board, we need to take that, realize it, move forward. I'm done with the past. You got to move forward. And if we're not moving forward, we might as well not be moving anywhere. So I want to thank you for your critique. I will say this, that we will get better. Things will get better. I'm growing in this role. I've always been told I'm a slow learner. And so I'm trying to get a little bit more up to speed, but it's difficult in here when you want everybody to have their opinions heard, and when do you put the brakes on and when do you not? And I think the best thing for me to do, and I just want everybody to know this, the best thing for me to do is do it by the book. And that's the way we're going to do it. So we're going to do business, and we're not going to let this happen again. We're going to move forward, and I will be a better steward of this seat for as long as I'm able to do it. I want to thank Superintendent Throne. You know, everybody gets all the praise and the thank yous and all those things, and at the end of the day, we hire you to do a job, and you filter it down. So the contract bargaining, the enrollment of students, the student services that are provided, the finance, the operations, all those things, the curriculum. There's one person that, if it doesn't work, is the one that everybody throws the stink eye at. So I'm pretty confident in your team. I'm pretty confident in you. And I'm really, really, really confident in Oxford. So I want to thank you and thank your team, and even let those people that aren't here know that we do appreciate their hard work. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Throne.
I know you've all said it, but I'm going to take time to say it too. At the end of the day, our job is about teaching and learning, and so I appreciate Ken and the teachers and all the work that you've done all year on the curriculum. Just good stuff, good stuff. And Jim didn't say, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't, but I'll say it anyways. I'll get in trouble later. But the passage was like 90% from the OEA. And so I think that speaks to, the amount of people that were highly supportive of this contract and everything that went into it. So I appreciate that, Jim. And with that, I'm good.
Okay. 9:34. It's good to be a Wildcat meeting adjourned.